Welcome to Monarchist Minute, Royalist news and discussion out of the good old US of A. I'm Charles York. Joined with me is our normal guest star, Darth Kilhoun, and our
Hey.
not so regular main guy, John. Reality is often confusing.
Yeah.
Tonight we have three topics for three hosts, but since I used that title last week, I'll just have to come up with something more creative. Feel sorry for me. So tonight on the docket we have. Why did I just forget that? Today on the docket, we have the feds trying to codify gay marriage in response to a potential move by the Supreme Court to not to overturn the federalizing of that issue. Uh, a guy with a Glock manages to stop a mass shooter from 40 yards away with surprising accuracy, and Fauci may or may not be retiring, probably retiring near the end of Biden's term. I don't know. When I added this topic to the docket, I thought it was pretty clear that he was going to be retiring, but whatever. So with that out of the way, we can move on to the first timestamp. Woohoo! Well, second timestamp. When we can talk about the federal government trying to codify gay marriage and the absolute depravity of that situation and how that makes us feel, and also how we also should try to tie this into monarchism. So
It is cultural entropy at its finest. I think that's a good starting off point.
I mean,
Because
it's not degrading at this point. Like, yeah, it's getting out of whack. Like, you can kind of see society just starting to fall apart. Like, it's all like based off like this and what happened with the abortion when it Dobbs. That just showed me that there's like mass hysteria going on. Like, no one can think rationally at all. Like, if this like federal decision goes through, I'm not going to be the one flipping and rioting and doing all this stuff for because of it. But of course, you see time and time again, one side just flipping out, and let's see. We'll see if the Supreme Court goes through with another decision that's more conservative minded. I don't know. Uh, Part of me doesn't want to take it for granted what happened with Dobbs, but who knows?
yeah, I think that one of the most important things actually for us as monarchists is I think a lot of the people who are here in the Monarchists of America movement politically we would have been Republicans before, or of the Republican Party, or at least
oh,
between the two we would have picked
disgusting.
we would have picked the Republican Party. And there's a lot of Republicans out there who still sort of think that the Republican Party is the conservative party. Now, I think I've
Yeah,
been on record as saying that the Republicans are essentially just a different flavor of liberals. They're just liberals
yeah.
who obey the speed limit.
They're the
Um,
right wing of what you call neoliberalism. I think that's the term.
yeah.
It's like global free market, that kind of thing. They're the right wing of that. They're not necessarily conservatives. They're kind of liberals.
What? Well, so in any liberal nation, they do always have a conservative party, but it's a twist on the word conservative because they are conserving a liberal order.
Yeah,
That is their purpose, and they are used in liberal regimes as a containment mechanism to control the right-wing elements in a liberal democracy, because fundamentally a liberal democracy is a left-wing government. So any actually right-wing institution or actual right-wing party is always a threat to that liberal order. So they create a center-right party, in air quotes, like the Republican Party or like the Tories or like the Christian Democrats in Germany, or um uh the Republican Party in France. Um uh and they use that to make sure that the right wing thinks that voting for this party is actually in their interest.
It's like
Um,
slowly losing a tug of war. Like they're like conservatism, like as far as parties go, and as far as movements go, I don't think. Like the Republican Party were are the conservatives, but they're conserving something that 20 years ago would be liberal.
mm,
Well,
They're like
conserving.
sliding,
well,
sliding.
Well,
that
well, the
well, that's
entire
why, like,
American experiment is just classical liberalism. I mean, that's the entirety of the American experiment.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'd
and
say
that's
and
why the Republican platform is always a return to the quote unquote Constitution of the Founding Fathers Day because they want to conserve the liberal order established by those men during the heretical revolution in America.
And I think I guess I don't know if I remember if I got to say this, but 40 something Republicans, I believe it was the House of Representatives who voted on this, if I'm not mistaken. So I think I want to say either 44 or 47 Republicans, or somewhere in there, voted for this codifying of uh, gay marriage, whatever.
yep.
Uh, so that just
The Republicans are not your friends.
yeah.
That
So
is their revealed preference because they will spout all day that they are against the left and their agenda, but then when it actually comes down to it, they will always side with the left. They
Yeah,
are
it's
not
kind
our
of something you run.
friends.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing you run into when you deal with like anti woke, like YouTube and other things like that. They'll call it out. They'll call out certain elements of like liberalism and like leftism and all that stuff. But then you slowly find out that they're kind of leftist as well, and it's kind of this awkward thing. Like, oh, okay, I agree with what you're saying, but you're kind of that same outlook,
we're
basically. And yeah,
we.
like,
w- Oh, sorry.
yeah,
They're sort of the people who don't want to cancel Dr. Seuss, but they definitely want to make sure that Kate Smith is canceled. That we
yeah,
can't sing. We can't. We have to tear down statues to Kate Smith. But Dr. Seuss is one step too far.
yeah. And that's what you run into. Like American conservatism is just more. It's more conservative, Leo or neo liberalism. That's like in essence what it is. It's not. It's not. It's not the old right, so to speak. Um, and even when, because I don't consider myself a Republican, I'm not registered with them at all. I don't think any of us are. But I, even if I agree with them on anti woke issues, sometimes I don't think there are saviors like everyone kind of thinks they are. They're not. They're kind of there are. I don't even know how to describe it. They're kind of
There's an
I, I
evil
s-
party and there's
they're
a
our
stupid
enemy.
party.
they
I
they're kind of charlatans because they uh,
Well, it's a Ponzi scheme.
yeah,
They are selling fake right wing uh
yeah,
platitudes to the actually more genuinely inclined right wing people, and they have taken them for a fool and they profit off of it. That's why the
yeah,
Republicans were never actually going to do anything about abortion. They just always use it as a campaign marker, and now it's been taken away from them because the Supreme Court actually acted in the place of the Republican Party, who the Republican Party has had several times where they could have reversed this in the legislative assemblies, but they haven't. So
they were that way with Obamacare. They were that way with plenty of things. It's just, and I think it all boils down to the fact that there are two kind of different right wings. There's the historical right wing where more kind of on the authoritarian side, though I wouldn't necessarily say authoritarian, but more traditional monarch minded conservatives, and then there's libertarian conservatives, and they it's kind of libertarianism, like neoliberalism to the right, kind of libertarian neoliberalism, and that is conservatism as well. So you have the problem of there being two rights in America. Well, not the old rights, not really in full swing in America, but you know, the most you're going to get out of the right here is kind of libertarian, kind of socially conservative, just free market people. And that's the most you're going to get. You don't get any old writers. You don't get old right people like kind of like ultra royalists or um, what you would see in the French Revolution, where they stood with the old monarch, or even some of the people that wanted to have a semi-constitutional monarch, and you had the July monarchy and all that stuff. You don't see that here. A part of me wishes there was a faction like that in American politics, but
I mean, you can kind of see it. I can kind of see the beginning of a development towards that, but it's definitely is an infancy stage with like
yeah.
the Patriot Front groups and like Nick Fuentes's America First. But I still write them off as they're still fundamentally in the liberal paradigm, even if they don't realize it.
And they're kind of a lot of like American right. They tend to get into what we call and they get into the alt right sphere, where like everything's kind of this secularized, sterilized right, and that's not. It's just disgusting to me because they seek uh, friends among kind of the more almost the
Oh, you cut out.
Yeah. Well, just to go on from that while we wait for John to get back,
more secular side of stuff.
you're still coming in kind of quiet. Um, but to go on from that, I mean, the alt-right, especially in America, like I kind of just say that because we've had so many generations of liberalism year after year after year, um, and into centuries now, that even the people that want a genuine change in a more rightward direction still can't think about it without a liberal framework. So that's why, like, I call people like, say, Dickie Spencer just a liberal who is a racist, because fundamentally he is still like a classical liberal in his brain, but he just doesn't like ethnic minorities.
I think it all boils down to like the new age kind of. If either you're a new age right wing person or you're a new age left wing person, either you're a new age in regards to the right wing, you're either in the kind of the Nazi kind of neo fascist side of the right wing, or you're like neoconservative, neocon. You're in that wing. You're not like traditionally right wing. You're just kind of this modernist, secularized, sterilized right wing. And when you're left wing, it's just all out neoliberalism to socialism to stuff like that. Then you get into all that stuff.
Well, I wouldn't even call fascist or Nazis or any of that
Yeah,
right
it's not,
wing in any sort of sense. The old definition of a right winger
yeah.
or the old
Speak,
definition of a
yeah,
conservative.
I'm speaking to the new kind of you know, the way most people perceive right wing, which I don't really believe that. I believe you either have like right wing means you're conserving tradition, left wing means you're kind of. Yeah, it's really complicated. It's really complicated, but
Well,
I
I
say
mean,
it
when I
as
say
a
right wing, it's going to be different than what a what a modern day Republican conservative would say.
well,
I mean, here's kind of like the more basic definition that kind of came from a combination of like Thomas Carlyle and de Juvenel, um, which Curtis Yarvin put into his thesis that the right wing is fundamentally pronomian or pro order, and the left wing is fundamentally a force of antinomianism or anti order.
I could kind of see that. I can kind of see in that ultimately the right wing is pro hierarchy and like order, hierarchy, all that kind of stuff, and the left wing is kind of, they're trying to get equality, but equality doesn't really exist in that. You know, even in
Like
the most basic sense, equality doesn't really exist. Like
hmm
even in regards to like simple matter, some matter is going to be distributed in in uneven terms. So
I mean,
even
there's a reason why like the right wing can approach things like Darwinism and uh the caste systems and stuff. Like, there's fundamental inequalities in the world between peoples, between race, between different ethnicities. I'll say, because fundamentally we are different between each other. We have different abilities, different talents. Um,
I would say more
you
so
can't
that
just exchange one person for another.
I would say more so that we're all kind of unique, and even if we are all the same biologically, we make different choices, and as a byproduct of our choice, there produces winners and losers, and even naturally within one generation you have different hierarchies that pop up just from people living life, and that just happens. And for the left, that's kind of unacceptable. For the right, ultimately, they see it, and whether you're like uh, kind of a free market person, which I don't think not a lot of people are on this server, really.
I
In,
mean,
in
most right wingers never were pro-capitalistic or
yeah,
pro-Austrian. Most of them were like the true right wing. I say are more in the distributist camp.
hmm
Uh, but I mean, that's just like classical Catholic economics.
and
This is from the
ironically,
Western.
that's a part of the kind of like the protectionism and stuff like that. That kind of died out with Hamilton's ideas, and really, that's kind of, I'm kind of like in between Hamilton and Jefferson when it comes to a lot of different stuff. I think a lot of people here are for some reason.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm. I mean, like I ultimately see um currency and the accumulation of capital and essentially the capitalist model of constant endless growth, but yet we still have finite resources. It'll fundamentally lead to us destroying the world, which you're seeing in a lot of places,
when you
especially in
don't
major.
uh, when you don't think of capital morally, when you just kind of think of it as like a buying and selling of goods and that's it, it just kind of becomes this machine, and whatever's the easiest to get, whatever's easier to attain, they kind of they kind of move to more uh yeah they kind of move to more just cold capitalism. Like it's just cold sterilized capitalism in regards to, if it's cheaper to make something in a
Commie
place, yeah, if it's easier to make something in a sweatshop, then we're gonna go with the sweatshop. And oh well, you know.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, partly that's what happens when a society removes from itself uh, God. Because when you
Hmm.
have God as the central focus of your life,
Yeah.
then I mean, that fact is going to affect how you conduct yourselves. Because if you're a person who owns a business and you acknowledge the Catholic faith, then you acknowledge that you have a responsibility to your employees, and so you are going to pay your employees at least what is required, what those workers are due. A worker who's actually working and not being a slack jaw, but a worker who is working, pay him enough to provide for himself, his wife, and his kids, living frugally. I mean, obviously, you don't have to pay him
Mhm.
enough so he can buy a Ferrari every year, but and if you're an employee, you're gonna acknowledge that I could just sit around here and only do things when I hear someone's coming, you know,
Yeah.
or I'll just grab this nut or whatever and put it in the in the car, as opposed to getting the actual one because it's easier. But you're gonna not deprive because your boss is paying you to do a job. You're gonna do that job. An honest day's work for an honest day's pay.
Yeah.
Um, but
It, it
but
it's
that
it all comes down to, you know, the left or the right, especially in regards to coming back to this issue, they don't really think morally, and they don't think morally as much as we'd like them to think morally. They're more so looking at, well, as of right now, as a party, the Republican Party aren't really about anything. You could say the movement's about really the movement's about, I don't know, honestly, at this point, because you
Well,
have the Trump camp that's kind of like right wing populism, and then you have, um, the more fiscal conservatism. But then again, what is fiscal conservatism when it's just balancing the budget? You know,
well, the Republicans don't even do that. They just lower
it,
taxes. They don't
or
balance
like
the
Yeah,
budget.
yeah,
they
they
also the
that's
Republicans
why
also
they
don't think
like
about like the interest based slavery that our debt systems under that the average people are under, which you can blame a lot of bank financing and Wall Street financing as a form of as a form of what's the best term for this? But essentially, the interest accumulated by that is constantly devaluating the dollar by the day and devaluing the ability for the average person to make ends meet
and not
because
only
typically
that, like,
wages will not change.
Well, I
yeah,
mean,
everybody's tied down by credit. That's another thing. Like, and if you have the money, if you're responsible, you don't deal with credit or anything like that, you basically can't live in this economy. Like,
You're not allowed to buy a house. You're not allowed to
yeah,
buy a new car. Like
yeah, exactly. And
like
that's kind of the society we live in. We live in like an interest ran society, and that's going to end up biting us.
yeah.
that that's
So,
why it's like I'll just use this as an example. Like I know people in the real estate market who have came to buy their first house and they are totally ignorant of the process, but they actually saved enough money to completely purchase the house. Like they literally have hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings that they've just accumulated and want to buy the house flat out. But because of the system, they legally have to finance. Like it's part of law that you have to finance a house. You're not allowed just to literally hand the cash between the real estate agent and the owner and just get the title and deed and now you own the house completely. No,
So,
you must
yeah,
go to a financial house, take out a take out a loan and pay interest on it, and you're also not allowed just to pay off the loan completely after a month either if that's just your strategy to get in and get your house.
no, I mean, because here's I'm going to assume the reason behind that is because we want people to spend that money that they would have just spent in one lump sum. We want them to spend that over time because the whole way that our system is set up, it cannot stand the fact that people want to save money for things. Okay, and I'm not saying that it's good from at least from even a moral perspective, just to hoard endless amounts of money for the sake of hoarding money. But if you're saving money to buy something, all
or
right, or if you're
you know,
saving money for a rainy day, because
yeah,
let's
you're
face
saving.
it,
And another thing, if you're saving money to make sure your kids don't have to worry or something like that, there's no problem. But when you're just hoarding it to hoard it, and your entire society's ran off credit, and you don't really have the land that you don't really like are able to do anything with the land that you're on. You can't build up a homestead. You can't do anything like that. You're constantly basically everything we own is kind of already like loaded everywhere else. Like it's kind of in everyone else's pocket. Like what we do and who we are is just kind of on loan constantly. And what happened historically is over decades and generations, you'd slowly build up, a profit, and then over time you would like have a homestead, and then that homestead would evolve into either a new town or a castle or a what you want to call a plantation or stuff like that. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. We can't really do that anymore. That's not really a thing. Because like everything we do is, it's almost not our own in a weird way. Though it is, it's just not. Like we're still paying bills, we're still paying income for land that we own, all this kind
of... The fact that also you pay that the government can seize your lands through eminent domain means that you're really just renting your land.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that I kind of understand that occasionally, but
the thing with like America though, like it is a extreme hypocrisy because supposedly the founders split partially because of property rights, and they didn't want the crown's government to be able just to seize lands. And now the federal government has taken the place of the crown government and is able to seize lands.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue that there is a legitimate use where sometimes the government says, "Hey, we need to use this." Okay, however, generally speaking, I can't think of a normal everyday circumstance where that use wouldn't just be temporary. Like the government saying, "Okay, dude, we need your house because it has a great field of view, and the enemy is over there, so we need to use this as a staff headquarters for a moment. Thank you, bye." Okay, that would be temporary. Okay, but the way that eminent domain has been used in this country is, at least in recent memory and still living memory for a lot of people,
like we
is
want to build
ridiculous.
a road, like we want to build a road or build a new shopping center, get lost or something.
Yeah, no, I mean it's and people wonder, let's just plow through all these poor neighborhoods because obviously these people aren't going to have the political ability to resist plowing an interstate highway, through their town. Or there was even one town where there were a bunch of houses that were fine, but I think the town wanted more like condo units or whatever there. So they changed the definition of blight to essentially any house that didn't have X amount of any house that didn't have like X amount of rooms or something, or some other crazy thing. Like the houses themselves were by no reasonable standard blighted, but they changed the definition of blight just so they could come in and tear down the houses so that more condo units could come. Or my favorite, there was this Marine, right? I think he was a World War II veteran or maybe Korea, and so he has this house, right? And the people, and the people come in and say, "Hey, these people want to build a mall here." And yeah, so we're gonna pay you, and then you gotta leave. And the guy's like, no. And eventually he just grabs a rifle and he says, if you want to take this house, I'm gonna have to shoot you. And so eventually the police have to send a couple of guys who pretend to be Marine vets themselves to sympathize with the cause. They get into the house, they arrest him, they drag him away.
It's
For
kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy because, going back to the point, the right is, they say they want small government and stuff like that. Yet, for the most part, republicanism has shown its face over the last few hundred years on how authoritarian it can be. It you
Well,
I
see,
didn't even get to the best part of that story.
yeah, like you see
Republican
these, like, and I just don't mean like the Republican Party. I mean just republicanism in general. How much of it can be just downright tyrannical in regards to many things that they've done over the last 100 or so years. It's really ironic, because everybody's like, everybody hates the fact that the monarch in old days had a perceived unlimited power, which is a complete lie because at the end of the day, the monarch ultimately had to share power with um, the church and
the aristocracy.
nobility and the local guilds and stuff like that. He delegated power, and his divine right came from. It's almost like a mandate. Everybody thinks like divine right is like, oh, I have the right to rule and all that stuff. That's kind of like a, a misnomer. Like when you look at what his responsibility was, he had a lot of delegation, a lot of separation of powers and stuff like that. So when you look at it now, man, it is kind of I mean,
Well,
looking at a society that's more authoritarian than I think there ever was in history.
well, here's the real difference too, from a more thinking about it sort of perspective. A monarch. I'm not saying that monarchs throughout history haven't abused their power, right? Because
Yeah,
monarchs
that's
are still
really not what
people.
we're saying. Yeah,
But
that's like,
it was sorry, it was clear to see that it was an abuse of power, plain and simple. But with
mhm.
republics and democratic, especially republics that try to justify themselves through democratic elections and whatnot, like we have in the U.S. with our democratically electing congressmen and now senators for some stupid reason, and basically popular voting for the president, even though we technically have an electoral college, even though the electoral college has never actually voted. The Electoral College has never really made a conscious effort to just completely overturn the results of the American people. It's just been states generally delegate all their votes.
And I wouldn't be able to imagine
That
how
would go down. But
that
anyways,
would be an apocalypse. Like there would be riots in the streets. Maybe not if it was like maybe in the right, because the right is kind of more, aside from a few dummies, aside from a few like crackhead, like right wing kind of QAnon people, like storming the Capitol and doing all this kind of crazy stuff. You don't
for
really see a lot of like full on rioting from the right wing. So if they overturned,
the
if
election, yeah. Well,
a right wing person, it probably wouldn't be as, it would probably still be bad, but
yeah, it wouldn't be.
wouldn't be as bad.
Well,
That
I mean,
that happen though. It
well, I
just
mean,
does.
yeah, but my point is, sorry, that that the thing with a republic or a democracy or anything that's sort of justified by the will of the people, whatever that means, is that even if what you're doing violates a constitution, like half the laws that the feds make nowadays, it consists of them taking responsibility in areas where the federal government was never given responsibility in the Constitution. And the Constitution says that if it's not delegated to the federal government, it's up to the states. But okay, and
Well,
here's the kicker.
that's because ultimately power decides what actually
Yeah,
happens, and the federal government sees that power under FDR's
dude.
tyranny.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, but the point is that even if it violates that piece of paper, the government can justify whatever atrocity or whatever it's doing under the will of the people.
yeah,
And
we're
it doesn't
more
matter if it's the most unjust thing on the planet. If the people support it, then you can't. Then under our system, you can't do nothing.
we're an authoritarian like democracy under the guise of kind of this representative republic. That's kind of what we are. Like we are more, now I'm not going to say just us. I'm going to say like democracies in general lead to and are in the last few hundred years the most authoritarian type governments there have ever been. I would dare say, because a lot of that stuff, a lot of like the hardcore totalitarian states stemmed, if they didn't stem from um if they don't stem from kind of temporary democratic states, so you have the Russian Republic, the brief Russian Republic, or the Weimar Republic, or any of these republics, they immediately accelerate into all out totalitarianism. And it's either slow or fast. Um it just it has the potential to accelerate, and republics kind of have that problem where if you get enough people to vote for you, anything's fair game. And the only like kind of anomaly was Italy, but at that point it might as well have been a republic. um,
Well,
you know
I mean, with Italy,
prime minister
Italy.
taking over everything.
Well, with Italy, that was. I mean, you could argue that the Italian experiment, the way it was set up, was doomed from the start,
Yeah,
because the Savoys were kind of liberal at that point, and any of the base boys, if there were
Yeah,
any, weren't in the line that was actually going to be governing things.
yeah. Nothing's
Um,
more self-assassinating than a Republican monarch.
yeah, it's so bad. Obviously, this didn't happen, but my AP Euro teacher was King Victor Emmanuel stepped down to become the president. He didn't, but he kind of did. I
Yeah.
mean, he didn't. He didn't stop being the king. The Kingdom of Italy existed, but for all intents and purposes, I mean,
Mhm.
Well, the thing about like I know this just by reading the German Empire's constitution. Um, uh, Technically, a lot of like these monarchies that we're thinking about, they tend to go like in the French Republican, like and Napoleonic.
Right.
It was the weird combo where technically when Napoleon was crowned, well, he crowned himself, but he was Emperor of the French of the French Republic. That was technically his title, and when the German Empire united, technically in the Constitution, it said that we are forming a confederation of German states with the King of Prussia as the president over the Confederation of the German states. So like they'll use like the Republican terminology, even though they even though the German emperor, like he was still an emperor, but they called him a president on paper.
yeah. I mean, and
They want to like, hey guys, we're cool, we're nice and modern, we're liberals just like you. I mean, look at our president. I mean, monarch. I mean, president. Look at him.
Our presidential monarch,
Look
guys.
how cool he is. He's so cool and hip and cool.
look at all that modern dress he's wearing. Ignore the fact that he's in full out pickle halba and he's about to smack you with a sword. But no, I mean, uh,
Yeah, they want their cake and they want to eat it too. Instead of like going full out saying, "I am the king and I am for liberty," but we're not going to act like this is a republic, which every single enlightened monarch did. They kind of said, "Okay, I'm an emperor, but I'm ruling a republic." Like that was kind of the shtick that the French Empire did for a very long time. They were like, "I'm the emperor, but technically I'm ruling a republic, and everything's liberal, and um,
The Napoleonic idea. Although funny thing, like
kind
Napoleon
of made
III was
yeah,
like Napoleon III, like he technically went from being president of France to emperor, but he also didn't like keep on using the title, like the French Republic. He referred to it again as the Empire and like got rid of all the Republican jargon. So you could kind of see that Napoleon III was a bit more reactionary than Napoleon I.
yeah.
but
And if
All they
Napoleon the
all they needed to do was show kind of that monarchs didn't have to be you didn't have to be one or the other. Like you could be an enlightened monarch and own the fact that you're a monarch, and be in a monarchy. Um Instead they kind of like, I'm a monarch, but also liberalism's cool. Or also, you know, it
well,
kind of telegraphed the misnomer that you need to have liberalism and you need to have republicanism to have liberty. Like you need to have, in order to be free, you need to have some type of a republic. That's ultimately what they kind of telegraphed when they had these far left wing kind of ideals and they maintained a Republican stance in spite of being they just become walking paradoxes is what
well,
they
mhm.
and
Well,
and
like
this isn't even. Oh, I'll let Darth say, and then I'll say the thing.
I mean, I was just going to use the example, like, this is ultimately what brought down the German Empire. Because, like, if you look at, like, the differences between Weimar Germany and the German Empire, the only thing that changed was the fact that that the, that the Kaiser was replaced with a democratically elected president. All the other institutions stayed pretty much the same. Like the Reichstag didn't have to change with the ending of the monarchy. The office of the chancellor never changed. None of these things really changed in Weimar days. It was just the who is in charge, which it was the SPD, the Social Democrats, which are really socialists, like on going the speed limit.
Yeah.
They took over with Prince Maxabadin essentially saying, "Well, yeah, well, we're deposing the president of the German Empire, the King of Prussia. He's no longer our president, and I'm gonna leave it to the SPD now to swap it over." Like literally, Prince Maxabadin like invited the SPD up to his office, and he just handed the chancellorship over after he announced the ending of the empire.
Yeah.
And so
Like
it's
it's
literally all you have to
blown.
do is just change the monarch over the empire to a president, and it fundamentally destroyed Germany. And
Yeah.
that's why the German conservative revolutionaries that popped up during Weimar days, they like Ernst Jünger was a great example of a member, Oswald Spengler. They were kind of like this more intellectual conservative movement, but they realized that the fundamental reason why the Weimar Republic was allowed to come into being was because of this Republican tinge, and they wanted to bring back the empire, but cut out all the Republican stuff. Like they wanted to get rid of the Reichstag, they wanted to get rid of the title of President of the Confederation and just replace it with Emperor of the German people. And they wanted to radically change what even came before in the old empire and bring it to a more
State.
place.
And this whole monarchs trying to justify themselves. Now we're gonna go back a minute to the English Civil War with Charles I, who is a guy I really like. He probably ranks up there, and there's a theory that he really wanted to see a reunion between to get
And
the Anglicans back into. Oh, he'll be back, I assume. But a theory that he wanted to get the Anglicans back into communion with Rome. I don't know if the Anglicans lost their apostolic succession at that point, but apparently the Anglican Archbishop of Westminster was offered the cardinal was offered the red hat by the Pope of the time, and the Archbishop laughed in his face. So apparently that Pope didn't think that he had lost the apostolic succession, or maybe he would have reordained it. But anyways, the point is that Charles I, a guy I really like, and I think that a lot of monarchists who see the problem really like. There was a coin that was minted, and I don't know if he specifically signed off on the design, but the inscription, it was for something, but also for uh for the liberty of Parliament. And it's, maybe this is just from a Catholic's perspective, given that given that Charles I was actually very lenient to the Catholics, and as much as he could, he essentially, he couldn't release the priests that were locked up in the Tower of London, but he did essentially let them walk around, London, ministering to the Catholics for during the day, provided that they came back to the jail at night, which is essentially turning it into a hotel, but with very poor views, but a hotel nonetheless. And but the the fact is that the liberty of Parliament, that expression, it bothers me, because Parliament was the one being the tyrannical element. The king was just enforcing his right. The king was the one who really. The king didn't want to really interfere that much. People are like, oh, but he wanted to build a very expensive navy. Oh, okay, whatever. Okay, you need a royal navy in order to protect. You're an island. You need a navy. It's kind of an important thing. When you're an island, your foreign policy probably involves a navy somehow. But this whole liberty of Parliament thing, and once again, I don't know if Charles I signed off on that coin design personally, but that phrase, this whole justifying, um, because this isn't even, because the English Civil War. I mean, the Enlightenment had started by the 1640s, right? Right?
I mean,
You
it
know.
built it. You can kind of see like the Enlightenment wasn't like it started here. It was
Yeah.
kind of like a
Right.
Yeah.
progression from Renaissance thinking upwards.
Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't full on, Enlightenment thing. And in a lot of ways, the English Civil War um was sort of a lot like a round 0 for the was sort of around zero for what would become the French Revolution and all the subsequent conflicts that eventually have gone on to this day, and will hopefully start winning soon. Because
See,
the
like,
only
yeah,
difference
yeah,
the only
yeah,
the only difference is that on paper the monarchy won, and Charles II was restored, and he tried to exercise the royal authority, and he converted to Catholicism on his deathbed. So we should pray for the repose of his soul. And then Jamie II, who had converted to Catholicism before he ascended to the throne, everybody was like, "Oh no, oh no, we can't have him," and they even tried to get an illegitimate son of Charles II on the throne instead, even though he was an illegitimate, so he wasn't going to be in line anyways. But so he tried to exercise the royal right, but for all practical purposes, Cromwell won. I mean,
yeah.
obviously he didn't get the Puritan thing, but Cromwell won. It's just that the monarchy after 1689 or 1688, sorry, just remained gradually devolved from William and Mary having some power, but eventually it gets to the point where today any power that Elizabeth II has is purely theoretical. So for all intents and purposes, Cromwell won, or
Yeah.
he's been winning. He may not if he sees this, he may not like the fact that there's still a monarchy and there's still all these traditions. But one of those traditions is the Queen has to ask for permission to enter Parliament. Right? She
That
can't just
that's
walk in as if it wasn't her building and her government. It's her
like
government. She should be able to
like
waltz
I'm
in
kind
and say,
of,
"Listen, noobs, this is what we're doing today."
at least there's something honest with America and their anti, republicanism. But like when you have something that's basically America, that when they have a ship, it's like it has Her Majesty or his. It's all like uh it's all like like the Royal Navy, the Royal Air Force. Her Majesty's this and Her Majesty's that. It's insulting because you don't even let her in Parliament. You don't let her exercise her power. She's basically a prisoner. Like she is a willful prisoner inside of Buckingham Palace. Like that's what she is. Like it. She doesn't have any power, and the power that she does have, she doesn't exercise. And I think that ultimately comes from her ancestors' ruling practices.
Which
And
was to not rule.
yeah,
What
yeah, yeah. And that's kind of the point. Like when you have a monarch that doesn't rule, it becomes more and more of an insult to claim to be a monarch. Or claim to be a monarchy. It becomes more and more of an insult because when you have a prime minister doing every single thing and a monarch doing very, very, very little, at what point do you need to just give up on the whole charade and just go full into republicanism? But then again, I don't really want that to happen. But I'm saying you're at a crossroads. You either need to own the fact that you're a monarchy and get rid of all this garbage about um oh, we do things in the monarch's name, but we won't let her into Parliament. We won't let her do anything like that. She's just kind of there. She
she's a
reigns but doesn't
separatist,
rule. You
but
know,
like you did see
put
this
her
in
put her yeah, put her back on the throne or don't bother.
in 1936, of course, we had Edward VIII take the throne in England, and he let's just say he was a bit more active in his governance as
How's
the
Harry?
as the divinely appointed monarch, and he also needed to marry. Unfortunately, his pick of wives was a American divorcee, but
whose
yeah,
whose husbands were still alive, or at least one of them was. So,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm
that
I,
wasn't chill,
I'm
but
gonna play devil's advocate and say they still could have married in an unequal marriage, um, especially under the quote unquote Church of England's rules. But that's beyond the point. But the
I
fact
love
that
it. ultimate irony that they got irate about that when their entire point of their huge flashpoint was King Henry VIII. Like
Wanted
the huge
he
flashpoint was King Henry VIII, and he killed his wives, and he was a divorcee. Well, they didn't count because they got annulled multiple
yeah, it was totally
Well,
annulment, even though the Pope himself said it was a valid marriage.
well,
Yeah,
he annulled himself. That's because he made
yeah, he
himself
annulled
the
himself.
king of.
Why?
But
Why didn't he become king? He should have become king, annulled the marriages himself, and then just said tough. That's what he
but
should have done.
but
Well,
yeah, to get back to Edward the Eighth though, as like this
That's
example,
what Edward the
he
Eighth. It's kind of funny with Edward the Eighth and Henry the Eighth. They both one loses the throne because of what the other did. Like
yeah
the exact same pretense of what the other did.
yeah, but the Edward the Eighth, like he actively wanted he wanted to unite the empire more and kind of make like the Imperial Federation project more of a thing because
Mm-hmm.
he spent a lot of time in the colonies. Um and so he wanted to revive that old project that kind of died amongst the British elites that didn't really want it to happen. In fact, most of the British elites wanted the dissolution of the empire. Um but he was very active in trying to approach that question. He was rebuked by Parliament by that several times, and then he also wanted peace with Germany because he kind of saw the conflict brewing. So he wanted to interfere with the foreign ministry and have them like make more peace overtures to Germany, and in fact maybe even make a non-aggression pact, which in his after he was removed by the Parliament, he was effectively removed even though he quote unquote resigned, abdicated for his brother, which was kind of forced upon him by Parliament's hand, because Parliament was just going to dissolve itself if he pursued these measures as a monarch should be able to do,
I was
and
like,
should
oh no. Anyways,
yeah, yeah, he pursued these policies, and essentially the government was willing to throw itself into chaos because he wanted to set the direction for England and not let the Parliament do that, which technically he did have the rights to do because the ministers are his subjects and his subjects are to follow his lead. Like minister just means servant.
yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Like I'm willing to destroy my own government to keep you from doing your job.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm
they're
willing to self-immolate for you to stop doing your job. Stop doing your job. You don't have the right to do your own job.
well, there's this alternate book series I want to write, not just because I want to write alternate history fan fiction. It's not just going to be Monarch comes in instantly, everything better. America now glorious Catholic state. It's going to actually take a while. There's going to be a civil war. That's probably going to be more brutal than ours because it's the 1870s, not the 1860s. But I'm imagining this one converse between two diplomats, and you have a British diplomat or somebody, and it's essentially this sort of monarchy where the monarch doesn't actually have any power, and the American diplomat says, yes, who do you represent? And he says, well, I represent His Majesty so and so, and the American diplomat says, oh, well, I get my orders from the king. Who do you get your orders from? And the diplomat says, the prime minister. Oh, but
Well,
aren't you technically
you probably want to
representing the
change.
king?
You probably want to change that to the foreign minister.
Oh, the foreign minister. Oh yeah, that probably makes more sense. But yeah, I mean, it's essentially that idea of I claim to be the king's representative, even though I'm taking orders from this guy. I mean, I mean, unless ultimately Britain's warships, they're fulfilling the ultimate orders or the ultimate objectives of the Queen. The Queen says we need to do X, Y, and Z. Uh, they're not doing that. Her Majesty's warships aren't really doing that. I mean, I
I
guess
mean,
it's probably
but
the Queen's implicit will that HMS Victory be preserved. So I guess in that sense, Victory is doing that. But then again,
mhm.
Yeah,
I would say
ultimately,
as an Well,
Yeah, it downgrades the entire point of the monarchy when you have a monarch just sitting easy in Buckingham Palace, and they're just like, all right, do whatever. All right, Parliament, whatever. I'm gonna be a big tabloid magnet while you go do government stuff. I'm just gonna be over here, and I'm going to uh, live lavishly without ruling anything, and I'm just gonna vibe over here while you run the country. How well does that how well is that, like, how does that generate enthusiastic people in regards to the monarchy? It just doesn't. Like, and that's what they all are now. Like, that's what every modern monarchy, save a few, that's what they're like
so
I'm just gonna
so playing devil's advocate here, like especially with the military, the monarchy is far more involved with the military than they are with the government.
yeah.
Like look at like Prince Harry and Prince
Mm,
William. They are they are very active officers. Well, not Harry anymore, but William still is. He's still has his military obligations, and typically it is the duty of a prince to take up a commission in the armed forces
mhm.
while he prepares for the throne. That's why technically Charles goes to military functions all the time, still, even though
Yeah,
he's an old man.
yeah, I mean, a part of me says, oh, all right, cool, why don't you focus on some little bit more of the civil aspects of your country? I mean, military,
I
being involved heavily in the military is great, but when you're not focusing on the internal aspects of your country, you can have the best military on the planet, but if your economy or if your politics are being eroded, that's going to go away soon. Um, and I
So
think,
also playing
yeah,
devil's advocate, gonna quote some Machiavelli, like a prince's first duty is to ensure the defense of his realm. To his warcraft is his first function, his first theory he is supposed to know before governance. Like I'm not also saying not
mm,
dismissing the fact that oh well, it's good that they're focusing on the military more than the civil affairs,
mhm.
but ultimately, like a monarch is also the head of the warrior caste in any society,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
if they
yeah,
don't,
I totally agree with that. What I would say is with that is, yes, he should defend his realms from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And when you have a caste, a neighboring caste, which is essentially the oligarchs, essentially the kind of wannabe ruling class that we call the
the
parliament.
merchants,
Yeah, the parliament, the diplomats, the politicians. If they're not kind of shown who's actually doing the ruling here, what's the point? Like, it's kind of like you need to focus on. Yes, you need to focus on. Yeah, yeah, you need to focus on just being a good military mind, because when your mind is attuned to that kind of stuff, you're able to think tactically in other realms. And when you're able to think tactically, it sharpens your mind and it keeps you aware of different problems that could arise in your country. Um, I think ultimately, when they're talking about defense of your nation, you need to think from within and without, from outside forces coming in invading you, and just as likely an inside force looking to overthrow you. And that's kind of what historically that's what monarchs just haven't looked for. Like they were focused on outward foes and stuff like that until uh, until crap hit the fan.
I
And
mean that like that's many of the fallings of monarchies in the past have typically been under very extraneous circumstances. I will
yeah,
say where
it it ultimately
the
from
monarch
people.
can't focus on the civil, and that's why like
Mhm.
I do value the positions like say a chancellor or a prime minister holds, but
Yeah,
traditionally they were heads of the government, they were heads of the day-to-day civil affairs, and they were appointed by the monarchs, not appointed by parliament. Like even up to the last days, like the Kaiser still appointed the Chancellor over the Reichstag, and
Mhm.
he had to run the government. While then the Kaiser was on the front normally during World War One, and
Yeah,
can ro-
I could see the perks of having a prime minister slash, head of quote unquote government. I would say that they pick up what the monarch can't manage. Like it as far as like ministers go, they should supplement the monarch in a way that is kind of adjusted to him as the monarch, but ultimately what it's served to do over the last 100 years is make the monarch's job less and less and less and less,
Mhm.
which
Well,
Yeah,
shouldn't happen.
I mean,
A prime minister should be the person who, when the monarch is doing everything he can, the prime minister should pick up the pace and be an extension of the monarch in every way that he can, or she, or whatever,
yeah.
as a prime minister.
Mhm.
and I mean the thing is that any position, this is what you kind of already said, but any position, like minister of finance or whatever, that the
Yeah.
monarch has created, he has to
Hmm.
be able to do things in that area himself. Okay, so he has to, and he has to be active in all these areas. He has to be working with the minister, if only to emphasize the fact that he is um, that he's still ultimately in charge. And even something symbolic, like if you've read Charles Colom's Star Spangled Crown, which is a good book about a hypothetical future American monarchy and how that could work. Not that he
Hmm.
actually thinks that it's going to happen that way. He says it'd be very unlikely it would happen that way. But the way that there would be this tradition, because monarchs have to approve, like a monarch assent to a law. It's not like the president who vetoes a law; he prevents a law from going through. A monarch has to assent to a law. Functionally, it's the same thing. Practically, though, I mean, functionally it's the same thing, but the symbolism behind it is different. Right, the president's stopping
Hmm.
something from happening. The monarch is letting something happening. But
That's
even
what I.
but in the book, even if it was just a law for this purpose, you would have the king approves it, which is what normal law was. But then you would have the king shall consider it, which is essentially him saying "Nah, mate," right? And there would always be, during a session of parliament or whatever, or Congress, because it's still technically Congress, I think, there would be at least one law, often included specifically for that purpose, right? To emphasize the point that the king has the authority. He is where the civil law will emanate from.
That's why
Uh, and
I
yeah,
like the idea of like the monarch being the thing in which, and I've had this thing in my head for a while, where you have divine right, all power flows from God, the Godhead, and then you have a constitution that's codified, the codified laws of man human put in within human grasp, and that's forged. And through that you have the monarch. And the monarch is divinely is kind of shares in that divine right, but then it flows down into him being the first legislator, the first executor, and the first judiciary. And he is all of those positions flow not only from him but from the Constitution, and that's why I've always kind of like, you can have both divine right and a codified constitution that lays out that divine right and lays out when the monarch has overstepped his right as king, or when he has betrayed his kingdom, when he's done that kind of stuff. And then you can, you know at least then you have like a codified guardrail in saying that, um okay, here's when the king becomes a tyrant, or here's when, and that you can go along the, you can depose him, and you can, but then you have to
It-
pull that
but
collar back
well,
and say, okay,
it's again, but who will depose the monarch? Like, I'm like what the plebeians are gonna. overthrow the monarch because they think that he overstepped his bounds? Are they going to hold a referendum? It's like
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm
I
not saying he's going to get
I hate.
impeached by. He's going to get impeached by something that they've perceived he has done. He's going to get removed based off something that he has done in violation of the Constitution.
Well, I mean, here's the problem with that. I think the well, let's see, constitutions themselves are man-made documents. The concept of monarchy is as natural, and the fact is that these people are allowed, are everybody is put in a place for a reason. I don't think I'm stepping out of the bounds theologically to say that you are put in, you are born where you're born in the time that you're born for because I think it's because it's that is what, when you're born and how you're born is the best circumstances for you as an individual to save your soul. I think I'm correct. I don't know. I don't know if that's dogma or anything, but you're put in that time and place because it's the best thing for you to save your soul. So being the king, so being the son of the king, is gonna probably mean that you're gonna be the king one day, and
Mm.
that would be the best. You doing that would be the best way to save your soul, right? So that's the you're put there for a purpose. You know, before which prophet was it? I don't think it was Isaiah, but it was before I formed you in the womb. I knew you. Before you were born, I consecrated you. Um, that sort of deal. But a constitution is made is made by men, and putting a constitution above that process and saying that he won't, and I'm not saying that there aren't monarchs who've overstepped their authority and monarchs that shouldn't be, that shouldn't, stop being monarchs, because monarchs have been. I believe it's it's biblical that there were monarchs who bad monarchs who were just killed or whatever. Uh, but the and I don't know if that was, if I mean, I'm not trying to interpret scripture other than that according to the unanimous consent of the Father, so I probably shouldn't have said that. But the fact remains is that the Constitution is a piece of man-made paper, and it would be like saying this guy is the son of a farmer, and there's a way that we can remove him from being a farmer, right? Or this guy is the son of a blacksmith, and we can remove him from being a blacksmith, right? I mean, now granted, monarchy by its very nature is necessarily more hereditary than, say, a profession like a blacksmith, where the son of a blacksmith doesn't necessarily have to be a blacksmith. It's not like blacksmithing is going to fall apart if that guy doesn't, become a blacksmith. But the fact remains is that I don't think that there should be a piece of a man-made paper that is going to do that. I mean,
Well, what I'm saying
God's
is there needs to be codified laws to saying, okay, he overstepped his bounds and he needs to be punished for it. And I think the main thing that drives people ultimately from monarchy is if a monarch um, um, a monarch should be held accountable if he potentially becomes a tyrant, because as St. Thomas said, the best form of government is a monarchy, is a essentially a benevolent tyranny, but the worst form is just a tyranny. The worst form of government is a tyranny. So how do we avoid that?
well,
Um, how do we mediate that as well as we can? And what I'm not saying is if they do something messed up once, it's grounds for them to be removed. What I am saying is if they display signs of tyrannical behavior, or um, if they do something that is grounds for treason, if they do something tyrannical, it needs to be looked at um, from other branches of the government, and it needs to be enforced from other branches of the government. There needs to be some accountability, because if you don't have accountability, and if a monarch ultimately, um, and also there needs to be a way that a monarch can be removed without removing the monarchy as well.
Well,
I think that's very important too.
well,
I
well. I
think there
mean,
needs to be ultimately um ultimately what I want in a constitution, whatever you want to call it, is not a divinely inspired document. And you can talk about whether or not the Constitution was a divinely inspired document. I don't personally think it was,
no.
but a divinely inspired document that says when a monarch oversteps his bounds and his duty as a monarch, in like he continually does that. If he continually oversteps his bounds as a monarch, he needs to face consequences. He needs to actually, he either needs to become the monarch he's supposed to be, or make way for another monarch. Ultimately,
Um,
Well.
I mean, like
Here's.
it's who's going to administer this. That's the problem. Like
which
the
that's
what
separations of
this
power.
this is
Ultimately,
what, like, say I
saying the president, it
I would
wouldn't.
I would
Um,
propose like the aristocracy. Like you need a natural aristocracy who is of
I
the same class as the king, who can judge his actions from the same caste. It's
yeah, I would say the same thing. But personally, I think that, and ultimately, Constitution can be whatever you make of it. I'm not of the mindset where this Constitution in particular is the best Constitution moving forward. I definitely think elements of it are definitely, but ultimately, there needs to be more to make it divinely inspired. At least in my personal view of what that means. But
Well,
I do think there needs to be some separation of powers where you have an aristocracy, and my ideal would be, semi-elected uh, legislative body or a House of Lords that represent the aristocracy, the royalty of the sub nationalities, to say, hey, you're overstepping your bounds or something like that. Ultimately, I want to maintain the separation of powers, but the way it was meant to be, essentially.
I mean, here's my ultimate issue. Okay. Whatever we do is going to have to be the will of. We should always try to follow the will of God. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess that his will might be to prevent tyranny or whatever in a monarchy. In the American context, we have a constitution or whatever. But and I'm but the thing is that when there is something, when a monarch or whatever isn't following God's will and he's doing all these bad things, he's, it's not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are instances where
Mm-hmm.
God let things happen and I don't think this is interpreting scripture. I think this is just stating something. So, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll admit that, and I'll cut this out. But there are instances where, in the books of Kings and Chronicles, where God let a bad monarch die in battle, or a monarch who wasn't doing his will die in battle, or let him lose a battle because he was doing all these terrible things. So I don't think that it's necessarily up to us to try, and because remember, everybody's born into a station of life for a reason. There's a reason why I'm the son of 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 my father. There's a reason why you're the son of your father and all that. Um, but the fact remains that I know. I mean, the fact remains that it's. I don't think it's necessarily up to us to try to come up with ways of counteracting uh, a bad monarch trying to dis disrupt whom God has, at least by his passive will, placed there.
I mean, I would say that, absolutely. I mean, I think sometimes you have testing, monarchs that are a test to deal with, but I would like, at least with as much power as us humans can possibly muster, um, find ways to mediate that and minimize that as much as possible. Um, I think obviously you're never going to be 100% efficient in regards to monitoring a monarch if he steps out of line. You're never going to be 100% efficient with who you let sit on the throne. If you're a monarch, which child you let sit on the throne. Um, but I do think that we can try, and we're at the very early stages of doing this with Monarchist of America, is to try and figure out what needs to be done either before a person takes the throne, during a person takes the throne, and and after, and trying to figure out how if a monarch becomes a tyrant, you have a worst case scenario. How do we prepare, and um, how do we fight against that? I think that's very important.
Well,
And obviously,
And
it's never going to be perfect, but I do think that's important in regards to monarchy.
I mean, throughout history before the Enlightenment, there were bad monarchs who were either forced to get back in line, or forced or yeeted and replaced with the son of the monarch or whatever. There didn't need to be some sort of codified rule bricks. Even
Well,
the Magna Carta,
yeah,
which was annulled. Well, not annulled, but the Pope was like, yeah, the Magna Carta isn't binding because technically England was a papal fief at the time, so he should have been consulted about this. So that's why he got rid of it. It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. There was no codified, and there shouldn't really be something. I don't think there should be something codified for this because, I mean, if it is, I mean, I'm trying to tread carefully here because once again, I'm not a theologian. But if it is God's will that a monarch not be there anymore because he's not being a good one, then if it's his active will that he not be there, then he's not going to be there. Eventually he's going to die, or her son's going to overthrow him, or something, right? It's or but I don't think that we need. I mean, maybe once again, maybe you know it may be his will that we have this in an American context, or whatever, because obviously he will know whether or not that will be effective or not, because obviously he can see all time, um but because he's outside of time. But I don't think we need to have anything to codify that, because if it is his will that a bad monarch or anybody be out of a position, it will happen one way or the other. So I think us do trying to do that is just sort of preempting. I mean, not preempting. It's just sort of. I mean, it's not necessary.
well, I ultimately think that while, yes, God takes care of stuff, especially like that, I think one thing is ultimately whatever monarch that's gonna come about, there's always going to be a camp of people, just like there were in the old days, that become increasingly politicized, and ultimately every bad monarch is going to be a mark against monarchy. And not in my eyes personally, obviously not in your eyes, not in Dart's eyes, not in probably anybody here. But ultimately, what partisans are going to do is they're going to take those bad monarchs, and every single bad monarch in a hypothetical American government, every single bad monarch is going to be a mark against the new monarchy. Ultimately, that's unavoidable. That's unavoidable. But I would want to do everything in my power mediate that, to minimize that, to ultimately try and curb that. Obviously, it's all in God's plan. It's all in God's providence. At least that's how I define it as a believer myself. But it's ultimately within our responsibility, because God's providence might be us putting codified things in our Constitution that say, okay, if a monarch's acting unjustly, if a monarch's disobeyed the commandments, or if he's done something tyrannical continuously. Now, it's okay to do one or two things wrong. I'm not saying that if he makes one mistake, because ultimately being a monarch, you're going to make mistakes, but continuous acts of tyranny, continuous acts of impiety, continuous acts of that should try to be mediated against. And yes, ultimately, sometimes we just have to, sit with these problems. But I think God would want us to do something about these people if we have the power to.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
thing.
I mean, and obviously this. I mean, I don't know if we'll know once.
See, this is the beauty about actually talking about monarchism, because we're actually talking about it. We're actually formulating thoughts about monarchism, which I think is very important in regards to formulating a system of government that involves monarchism. I think this is very important because the more we talk about it, hopefully, the more we can strengthen the cause.
Yeah, and I guess to wrap up, or say my final piece before
We
I let Darth talk, and then maybe we can move on to our next topic. But I mean, I'm fine with talking about this. Uh,
we've kind of beaten this thing. That
well,
we're down a rabbit hole.
I
I
mean,
I
yeah,
just also say that like we won't know what the natural constitution of our monarchy will be until it comes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because fundamentally it needs to happen organically. It can't just be like a Lenin theorizing about the revolution like decades before it happens, and oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. It's like we're gonna have to develop it organically, because if it's just artificially forced, it's gonna cause a lot of problems,
and that
like it always does.
that actually was kind of my point. Thank you for rerailing my train of thought because I was kind of trying to buy time. But yeah, no, I mean the fact remains is that before the founding fathers wrote down a constitution, the concept of constitution existed before we put pen to paper and wrote the Articles of Confederation or whatnot. But the back then a constitution was more of it wasn't so much a written document, obviously. It was the norms of the kingdom, what a king was expected to do, what his ministers were expected to do. You have all these sort of concepts of like how the Constitution of England was shattered in 1688, or at least it's that would be an expression that might have been uttered, or our constitution's been shattered, might have been something that you would have heard, even if there wasn't a specific written constitution. And even today, England's constitution is just a bunch of laws that have been slapped together, at least from my understanding. But yeah, that is the essence. I mean I mean this the problem that we're going to face as an American monarchy, and I'm now thinking about this for the first time, is we might be like Rome in the sense that we have to essentially start up from ground zero. And the Roman Empire was better than the Republic in the sense that now there could have been a unified vision, but there was still a lot of stuff that had to be ironed out. And over the years, with the collapse of the Roman Empire and eventually the creation, as Catholicism was more institutionalized in the state and actually began to wield and actually began to take its proper place in regards to civil society. Um, it eventually that whole system developed into the medieval understanding of government, which was really the best understanding of government when regards to how church and state formed, and that took a lot of time, and I don't even think that even if we get a lot of Americans, 56 70 80 whatever, enough percent of Americans to just sort of win the next elections, and then we can amend the Constitution however we want, ultimately ending with this amendment to the Constitution declares the Constitution null and void or whatever. Um, you know the however we do that, I don't even think it would be necessarily possible to take those past traditions of how England's monarchy used to work when it was still Catholic, or France's monarchy, or whatever those constitutions were, and then just transplant them here. We would have to develop the same thing or a similar thing over centuries, and we're going to have to go through probably a lot of instability. Maybe what will happen is we'll just borrow all these ideas from Europe, or borrow these useful, ideas from somewhere. But now thinking about it, the first incarnation of what America's monarchy looks like starting off. It's most likely going to be better than the Republic, but it's not going to be, it's going to take it's going to take a few kings before we get to stable um, a really stable monarchy with organic institutions, and where the church is in her proper place, governing things and making that transition as smooth as possible. And all these pieces we're moving, we're essentially we're cleaning up a room, right? Because America politically is a very messy room, and we're putting pieces back in place. We're taking out things that don't belong in here. We're taking, it's a bedroom, and we're taking out the dishes. As America's a house, we're taking the the dirty plate out of the room. We don't need that because it's a living room, right? Or and we're putting this back in, and we're dusting off the furniture. We're getting rid of the excess. We're doing all that. That's essentially going to be the process of an American monarchy. We started cleaning. That's great, but before we get to but we're going to need to finish cleaning, right? The living room doesn't look disgusting now, but we're still going to need to do some pretty heavy dusting. That
What I say is, even if, my end goal is I want this little group, this little community, or just the monarchist movement in America in general, the few people that are a part of it right now, to be the forefathers of the intellectual movement in America, and that means, that might be centuries before information is spread, before what we say here, or before what we believe in here is spread through the American populace. But I think the important thing that we can do now is talk about it, kind of digest it, see how kind of we're the thinkers of how this system would work in America. And I don't want to just pull stuff from here, from there, from stuff like that. I want to really look and see, okay, how does this system, how would this system look in America? And you have many views of how it would look in America. You have Charles Cologne's ideal. You have my ideal. You have your ideal. You have, I would imagine, basically every other person you have on the server is going to have a different ideal of what an American monarchy would look like. I think our job right now is to be the intellectual forefathers of, hopefully, the future generation of more and more monarchists in America. I think that's very important, where we're the people that are going to be, I wouldn't say, I don't know if we'll be remembered, but if we are remembered, if monarchism does make a huge comeback in America, we'll be remembered as the people who were the thinkers that really thought about how it would be possible, or were the people who would open that door to the future generation about monarchism and probably get them thinking about it, and hopefully over time making them realize that monarchism is the better choice as opposed to our current governmental system. That's pretty global right now, but you know, these movements start small. We're not gonna, you know, our thought processes are gonna grow organically over time. And hopefully by the time we get noticed by anybody, God willing, hopefully by the time we get noticed by anybody, we'll have a really solid, planted, foundational look at what the American monarchy would look like organically. Um, what it will look like on paper and in reality. And I think that's very important too. We are the intellectual. We're kind of
Vanguard.
we're the vanguard of monarchy in America. Like we're the progenitors of it, if you will. I guess there were people before us like Charles Colomb and stuff like that, but you know,
And
I
then
guess you
also
could ease
the
the
American Tories were also another group back in the Revolution.
yeah. We have people that come before us, but we want to make our movement. Our movement was a lot bigger in the colonial days, but that was a more royalist type thing. But
Well, I don't think that.
I mean, we also have to like look abroad too at different reactionary traditions as well, like delving into like say Oswald Spengler's like his famous Decline of the West, seeing the moral decay and what generally led to that. Um, like Louis Evola's radical traditionalist stance. I mean, he is kind of anti-Christian, but he does have a lot of wisdom in his writings for more traditionalist minded, which fundamentally, if you're a monarchist, you most likely are a traditionalist as well.
mhm.
um, and like there's so many other ones, like say De Juvenel, um, Gaunt, Goethe, um, Ernst Jünger. You can just look at a lot of, and then actually like study actual monarchs. Like say I own Kaiser Wilhelm II's memoirs, and I read it for general wisdom from an actual monarch, and yeah, just generally those things can inform your worldview and inform like how you are to even think about um uh the ideas of tradition, the ideas of monarchy, how how you live in the faith, all these things. You just need to broaden, expand, become more intellectual, and learn how to guide other people too towards these things. Learn how to be a teacher as well as a scholar, because you're not going to be a good scholar if you also can't teach people about these deeper concepts. And you also need to figure out who are the people that can't even think on these planes, because it is fundamentally a very small number of people that can't actually think this way. Most people are just want to live their own lives and not have to think about deeper concepts of like tradition, religion.
Yeah, I
They just
mean, I would say with the tradition, I would say, yeah, a lot of people should think religiously, but as far as like being kind of like intellectual agents in their society, I don't think everybody needs to do that. And I think like it's very hard to have everyone in your society think that way.
what
Um,
the
and
problem like with
that's
most
possible.
ideologies though is like they come to this idea that everybody can be an intellectual, which fundamentally if you're part of the right, you know for a fact that there's different castes. You know for a fact that there's different groups of peoples and they have different skills. Like Karl Marx thought that after the after the dictatorship of the proletariat and the full implementing of communism, you're going to have a philosopher on every street corner. It's like, no, that's not how
Yeah, I
human
mean,
society has ever worked.
yeah, there's always going to be people who wind up working, regular jobs and doing, and I think there needs to be some support behind that, because that is absolutely 100% needed. Like, I think everybody thinks that, not everybody, but the left thinks that you need to have information poured into your head 24/7 to live a fulfilling life and just to be a good human being. You don't need to know you don't need to have a college education to have a good life. My grandfather, he had a 5th grade education. He basically did every job under the sun, and well, he lived a fulfilling life. There's nothing bad about being less educated. What we need to really put a premium on is people living their life and being fulfilled. That's ultimately what, and that can be in anything. Your work is very important into what you're fulfilled by. I think there's a vocation, if you want to get into a religious minded talk of what that would be. There's a vocation calling all of us, regardless of what your IQ is, um, regardless of how big your brain is, regardless of how fast you process information. There's a job out there for you, and I think ultimately what the left and what modern society has done is kind of tried to make everybody their worth dependent on their IQ, their worth dependent on things like that. Ultimately, their worth doesn't come from anything that's different within you, that's different within me. Ultimately, it comes from us being human beings, and from a religious context again, made in the image and likeness of God. Now that doesn't change no matter where you are. That doesn't change no matter where you fit in the hierarchy. Um, but that does make you equal. And that ultimately decides, you being a human being ultimately decides that you're of equal value with everyone else. Now that doesn't mean you have the same intelligence as other people. That doesn't mean you have the same, wallet as other people. You might be smarter, you might be dumber, you might be duller, you might be sharper. That's just how people work, and uh, variation is everything. Like, you get two humans in a room and they're going to be different. I think it's an ultimate failure of the left in saying, no, we're all equal. We're all equal, as in we're all the exact same, and we can all be the exact same if we just do the exact same stuff and be the exact same way. And uh, if we all think the same, if we're all taught the same way, and we're all ultimately, I would hate that. I want variation in humanity. You know, that just leads to a dull society if we're all the same. And I think, additionally, I think that's impossible.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right,
The,
let's get to this. Uh, the good news. Not well. I wouldn't say good news, but I really liked hearing about it. Uh,
oh. Oh. Um.
what's next on the docket?
Oh. Well. Let's see, Darth. Are you? Are you ready to move on?
Yeah, I just had to take a call there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So.
we beat this conversation to death. Let's move
Well,
on.
yeah, I mean, no, but it was a good one. And it's actually
Yeah,
kind of important that we actually talk about monarchism once in a while. Imagine that on Monarchist Minute.
I
I do
mean,
like the
But
fact that we let it go.
fundamentally, like,
We let it go a little bit. Like, we let the conversation go a little bit, see where it went. I liked it.
I'm gonna make like one final point on this.
okay,
Like, if you are a monarchist in America, essentially I'm guessing you're from this intellectual strata, these people that think about deeper concepts and ideas. This is why we need to be more intellectual to create this vanguard to get these ideas out there.
Mm-hmm. I would say
Yeah.
read more. Read. We have a reading list. I've posted it several times. Just go through all of those as much as you can. That's what I would say, and that's a good starting point.
Yeah. All right. So now we're ready to. All right, because remember, guys, I have to get this thing. Might have to get this entire thing done and dusted. Our next topic is there was in a gun-free zone in a mall. There was this guy who brought in an AR-15 that he had in a backpack, and he wanted to shoot up a bunch of people. And I think he did manage to kill 3 or 5 people, which was obviously terrible. But there was this guy whose name was Eli Dickinson, and he manages to shoot from 40 yards away 10 shots at the mass shooter, and he hits with 8, which 40 yards is 120 feet, which with a handgun that's pretty impressive, especially considering when this isn't just a nice day out at the range. You're actually trying to save yourself and also more save he was with his girlfriend and save everyone around you. So that's a very stressful situation to be in. And he manages to do that. And and I think firstly, this is something that when I turn 21, I really need to get a concealed carry permit, because in Michigan, I think you can be gifted a handgun when you're 18, but you can't actually buy a handgun until you're 21 because stupidity. And when that happens, I really need to start learning how to actually aim, because right now, I can get a rifle. I can hit things with a rifle, but it's not like a standing up range. It's one of those ones where you're sitting and the rifle's on a block or whatever. But at least I can actually shoot that. I am terrible. Using both hands it does not improve my accuracy. Going 19th century officer just using one hand, for me right now, is substantially cooler and also doesn't affect my accuracy. That's how bad I am. I'm that
Right?
inaccurate.
No, you're trying.
Well,
Being
yeah,
from
I'm trying, but
being
but
great
It
north.
it takes time. Like,
yeah,
I mean, just being in the military, I've seen people that have never fired in their life become sharpshooters over the
Yeah.
span of, like,
Yeah.
it typically, if you come with no preconceived notions of how to shoot, you will typically outshoot, in the end, the people that have done it their whole lives but have preconceived notions on how to shoot that are wrong.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it-
Ultimately, if you're around guns enough, you'll be competent. You'll be
yeah.
competent if you're
Well,
around them enough. I have the good fortune of being able to be around guns continuously, but I know up there it can get rather
well,
difficult to have a healthy gun culture.
Well,
Up,
yeah. I mean, it's just that my dad and I we don't really go to the range as often as we should, or even as often as we perhaps or as I perhaps want to, or he wants to. He likes to go shooting and stuff. But no, I mean the point is that we should all be ready. We should all know how to use these weapons and know how to use them to potentially defend ourselves and others. But the fact that a lot of people were upset by this, they're not. They're like, we should, they weren't, talking about the fact that this mass shooter brought a gun into a no gun zone, and that gun free zone wasn't suddenly a magical barrier that prevented him from getting in with that AR-15. It's not like there was a magic bubble where he was just sort of bounced because he had an AR-15 in his backpack. Uh,
yeah, I
nobody's
know.
talking about no. They didn't want to talk about that. They were upset because they're like, isn't it's terrible that we had to that it's that somebody that somebody had to stop this. Really, we should be focusing on making it harder for people to get guns. It's like you can kind of tell that your firearms laws aren't really working.
So
Like, well, I mean, I always as a law-abiding citizen, make sure that I don't have a Glock on me when it says no Glock zone. But of course, my friend Roger, who is a felon, is not going to think the same way. He's not. He's not going to say, "Oh well, I'm a felon that needs to carry a gun on me because I am in a gang or something like that." And dang, oh man, this is a gun-free zone. I had to put my gun away. I had to put my AK-47 away because I got to obey. I got to obey these gun laws.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean that's the point. If anything, a mass shooter is going to want to go to a gun-free zone because he knows most of the public, even if they had a concealed carry permit, they aren't going to. I mean, they aren't going to they're not going to carry it because they see the gun-free zone law and they're
Because
going to obey.
we all know, Charles. A school shooter's gonna walk into a school, see the the no gun sign, and he's gonna say, "Dang it! I've been foiled again. I've been foiled again. I wanted to shoot up the school, but of course I can't because there's a no gun. I can't take guns in here.
Yeah, and
So my plans have been foiled. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna live a
normal life. Well,
normal."
I think my favorite, I think the real problem is that some of these no gun signs are a little specific. Like there's a no gun sign on a bus or whatever that showed very specifically in 1911, right? So you could say that well, I'm not carrying a
Yeah,
1911, I'm carrying a Glock.
you're
I think we need to make these no gun signs as generic as possible. Like a elementary school person, an elementary kid, an elementary boys school boy's drawing of a gun with it's just a stick and then a handle. That way it's as general and all encompassing as possible. Or like one no gun sign I seen recently where
yeah.
the
Just
gun
put
looks
in
like a
no
flare
gun.
gun.
Yeah, yeah. One thing you can do is, well, that would just say, okay, any guns allowed, but they could just put no guns, just out the text, no guns. But it's not like it'll matter. Like
Oh
if you,
no, that's not.
So
Well, no, we had to include it in at least Spanish.
oh, I'm sorry. Oh, dang, we need Braille
Yeah.
too.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This isn't something that you want to joke about, but or maybe it'd be a bad taste. But like a blind mass shooter, how would how?
I mean,
Basically,
if
I think it'll work,
there's
but
probably some like blind monk out somewhere that has mastered the technique.
like
Pro-
like what's his name, Daredevil.
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah, but he's a
But
superhero.
I'm gonna talk about a little bit about Machiavelli's
Are you
point
telling
on
me,
this.
Charles, that
Oh, let
superheroes don't?
Mark. Yes.
I can't believe that.
Okay.
My day is ruined. Thanks, Charles.
But going on about Machiavelli, he pretty much wrote that if your citizenry you take away the guns of your citizens, they will fear and hate you, more hate you and despise you. But if you allow them to keep and possess their arms and not interfere in that sphere, they will be fanatically loyal to you. So it is better to allow your population to be armed than it is to take away their arms. And also, they will. He also points out that they will rally to your banner, um, uh, if a crisis in the nation emerges. So you can effectively see the fact that a citizen gunning down another citizen that's trying to gun down others as a form of like that American rallying behind the banner of the American Republic to defend it against this guy.
Well, I would say anybody that steps up like that. If I were to be a monarch, I would never want to be never want to be a king. But they would be among the first to be knighted. Like the people that, and it's just like the military. The people that just step up when everybody's like, "Oh, gun," they step up. They have a weapon, and they use it. Those people are in a society, those are the people that among other people deserve to be knights. Probably the most. The people that do things like rush into a burning building, that that really show those qualities of being heroes. And I would say that no matter who this guy is personally, no matter what he's done in his life, at least in this one case, he was a definite hero. This guy, like, there's no telling how many people would have died if this guy wasn't. Where was this? A Walmart? Was this
No,
a?
it was a mall in Indiana, I think.
If this guy wasn't at this mall, there's no telling how many people would have been killed.
Yeah.
So you want to throw all this stuff throw all this stuff on the screen about on CNN and MSNBC and all these places, like, oh, guns are bad, guns are bad. A gun practically just saved, out of this guy's sheer act of heroism, he saved at least probably tens, maybe, I wouldn't say
Dozens.
people, but tens of people. He saved untold amounts of people doing that one act. And he used a gun while doing it. Of course, you're not going to hear this. You're not going to hear anything about this.
Yeah.
And
I
it's just going to go back to, oh, we need to do something. Honestly, if we need to do something, we need to give
Not to end this beautiful topic, but I actually need to get going. It has been great talking with
unbelievable.
you guys.
I'll see you, dude.
All right, take care, God bless, bye.
But yeah, I see this as a win, a definite win for guns rights, for uh, uh, or anti-gun control movement, Second Amendment movement.
Well,
This is
I mean, I'm not sure it's going to be taken that way because this is just a more, I mean, at
it's
least
just
somewhat.
ignored. It's going to get ignored, but ultimately,
I mean,
I I couldn't be more proud of this guy. At least internally, we should celebrate this guy for really taking initiative and being that good guy with a gun. Because what happened at Uvalde with those policemen who were obviously not the good guys with guns. It's good to see that there are indeed people that can be that way.
oh yeah, I mean, the thing is though, is that more guns, and I think it's, maybe it's like in order, it's guns are used way more. There are more uses of firearms for defensive purposes every year in this country than they're used for criminal purposes. And I'm not talking about a little bit. I'm talking thousands. I can't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but the fact remains, um, that that this stuff does happen, and it does happen a lot. It's just that it's not really talked about because, I mean, let's face it, a guy who shows the fact that he has a gun, because, like, let's face it, like, the mere presence of a gun is probably going to make a mugger think twice, right? Because you see the guys carrying, it's like, yeah, I'm probably not going to try to mug that guy, because even if you have a gun, it's going to be closer to an even fight.
Yeah,
And also, so there's all these
yeah,
instances.
yeah.
Um,
Criminals always go for the weak, the defenseless. When you have a Glock, that's why it's called the Great Equalizer. It's called the Great Equalizer for a reason. It's not supposed to be this evil thing that all it is the modern day equivalent of a bow and arrow or a sword. It's more accessible. Um, it's more easy to use than a sword, I would say, at close range. Um, it is the modern day self defense weapon, and even it in its most extreme, It can defend a state. It can defend a homestead from invaders. It can defend anything, and that's ultimately what it needs to be. It needs to be a great defense against tyranny, against criminality, against all this stuff. And in its proper place, it is. But people who are mentally ill, who are criminals, um, demonic, I would say, they use it and they make it a tool for destruction, a tool for devastation. And I don't think in that devastation you should blame the gun. I think you should blame the monsters who use it for evil. The gun ultimately is an ethereal. It's like saying pencils are evil for
For the Joker saying, "Watch as I make this pencil disappear," and smacks again
yeah,
on the desk.
for doing away with somebody with a pencil. It's just a null point. I don't know why. I really don't know why the left is so hung up on this. I honestly don't
Well,
know.
I mean, if you want to be, I mean, here's the thing. I think that there is a surface level reaction to just associate the tool with the person doing it, because let's
Yeah,
face
I would
it,
say, yeah,
having to use a
but
gun.
what Leon said, I would agree. He said because the right supports it. I would 100% agree with that. It's this honestly, and I've seen this with the right too. Like when Trump came out with the vaccine, they were kind of supporting of it, and when it's just politics, they don't really have anything substantive with it. Honestly, I've seen from both from I would say the Trumper right, like the kind of the Trumpist populist right. They they get kind of cultish. They're not as cultish as the left is, but they can get cultish. And I think this ultimately stems from the left's kind of pure cult mentality, because they did the same thing with abortion, going back kind of to our first issue, not really, but they do it with abortion, and they're doing it with gun control. It's the same shtick. They don't really bring anything else to the table aside from kind of this clickbaity, using your emotions against you type thing. Where think of the children, think of the children. If
Yeah,
you're really thinking of the children, you need to add more things in there that defends them from people like this.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, I mean, I think there's probably always going to be the element of people who secretly, want control, or they want to allow this. It's like, the to quote the Freedom Tunes, skit. If it's like, so vote for your common sense gun control now or whatever. That is, if you want to live in a free country. That is a country where we're very, very free, and you're free to shut up and obey.
yeah. I mean,
No, but there's,
it's just
I,
like their recent bill. Like they to their defense, they did add some mental health stuff in there, but they just had to. They just had to shove in red flag
but
law and things like that. They just had to do it. They couldn't just focus on the mental health problems that basically the absolute maximal thing that we need to look at, the absolutely essential thing that we need to work on as a country.
it's
They
the
just
mental.
they had to throw in these red flag laws, of
Well, yeah.
course.
So I'll just say something about the red flag laws, and then we could talk about the mental health thing about that. But the thing with these red flag laws is, one, they're unconstitutional, and that kind of gets back with the unconstitutional
Mhm.
will of the people, so we can do whatever we want. Lol. But also, it's a complete violation of a notion that that people have a right, when they are being accused of something, to go before court, right? If you're being accused of being a heretic, or whatever, of espousing heresy, you have a right to go before a Catholic court. Like, there are canon lawyers or whatever. You have a
Yeah,
right, to defend yourself in that sense, and you have a right to defend yourself in this sense. The notion that the police can just I could just call up your local police and say, "Oh, I think, John's about to, rob a store or whatever," and and they can come and take your guns without any actual concrete evidence. And, and I get the notion that okay, but we need to act fast and whatever. There's not time for court proceeding or whatever.
Mm.
But the fact remains is one that if the person is actually suicidal, is that really going to build confidence? The fact that they confided in you that they were expressing these suicidal thoughts. So the first thing you do is call the police, and then they knock on your door and take your firearm away. And that
Yeah,
reinforces that your friend thinks you can't be trusted with your own property.
nothing says I care about you like calling in a SWAT team to take your guns away.
Yeah, no, I mean the whole and Maryland had a red flag law or whatever, and I think NPR was talking about, oh, Maryland had a red flag law or whatever. It's like, yeah, but like shortly after the red flag law, the police came in and they just killed a guy in his porch because somebody called on him. I don't know if it was his friends or his family or what. And it's like, yeah, that's I don't think the police meant to just kill a guy for no reason. But the fact that remains is that something like this is going to happen because the police are going to think this guy is going to be willing to use his gun and they're going to come in, knock on the door or whatever. And it's, and I'm not saying that all police officers are brutal murder killers, because no, they're not. But this whole the whole red flag law concept is stupid. Okay, I mean, if you okay, if somebody is actually experiencing something with a mental health problem, I think a far healthier way of dealing with that is saying, okay, man, do you want to come over to my house or whatever, we could talk this out, or do you want me to just to take your guns from you and put them in my gun safe for a while until you feel better. Okay, that's
Yeah,
which by the way might be which by the way in an unrelated context, if some people want to make that illegal for you to borrow someone else's gun, so that's a lot healthier than calling in law enforcement. Which, don't get me wrong, cops, I think most cops are going to be nice people or whatever, or at least as nice as the average population. But when you're calling in the police, that's sort of an inhuman thing, right? Because the police is an organization.
yeah,
It's not just your friendly neighborhood club. I mean, they're a group of people who have a job to do. It's
yeah.
not human. I mean, obviously they're human, but it's not.
It needs to be handled internally. It needs to be handled by the policemen that are involved in the situation. It needs to be handled by the people that are around him or her. It needs to be handled around the people that are around him that can act from a place of personalism, from a place of and the people around him could mean the school that he's in. Um, Probably he needs to get committed or a therapist, therapist that can help him or something like that. But the thing is, there's no, yes, mental health needs to be done, but no one's willing to help the people that are dealing with this kind of thing, like therapists, school therapists, really anything like that. Uh, they're just kind of fallen by the wayside, and these red flag laws don't do anything but kind of irritate people that aren't in trouble of doing anything like this. It just irritates them, and it just makes their lives more painful. And it just, yeah, it might get a few school shooters, but honestly, if they are really determined with getting a gun, even if they get their guns taken, I don't know if they'll be able to just stay gunless for long. I just
Yeah,
don't know if this is a permanent solution. It's not a permanent solution, it's a band aid.
yeah, and the thing is that the thing is too is that, I mean, the act of knocking on the door like that. I mean, there was an episode Dragnet, which is supposed to be based off real cases. I'm not saying that this happens every day, but there was this there was this guy, and he escaped from either a Nazi prison camp, or was the Soviets or whatever, or in Czechoslovakia. And he was broke or whatever in this country, and he came over here, and he basically cashed a phony check with the full intention of paying back the person. And once he got the job, because he needed to get the job to pay the money, but of course he was going to be sent to jail for a little while because of that, and he really didn't want to go back to jail. And this was like the day before, and he was given like a day to get somebody to take care of his dogs or whatever. And he essentially was like he was going to shoot himself because he didn't want to go back to prison. And of course, the police officer, he comes in pretending to be a reporter or whatever. Um, who the guy told he was going to shoot himself because he was a fan of the paper or whatever. And the police, and and even after the guy found out he was a cop, he was still talking to him, and he was almost ready to do it. But one of the people who he had borrowed money from, was banging on the door, and he thought it was going to be the cops, and they were going to take him away. And he thought that the American prisons were just going to be a gulag or a a Stalag or whatever. Well, Stalag is a POW camp, but um, one of these concentration camps all over again. And so he shoots himself. And of course, and of course, I don't know if they embellish this for the sake of the story, and it's kind of beside the point. But the guy's like, that guy owed me money. It's like, dude, you're just the reason he pulled the trigger and killed himself. Like, I don't think that's what you should be thinking about right now. But I mean, the fact that somebody knocking on the door in that violent manner, like open up. I mean, that might get the guy to think, they're coming to take me away. They're going to put me in a mental institution. I don't want to live like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, police can be wonderful, but a lot of the time they come in guns blazing and they wind up getting more people killed than needs to be, and uh, that's kind of the prime example of it. They get perceived notions of kind of ag- aggressiveness and aggression, and they just kind of go overboard with it. And a lot of the time, the people that are on the other side of that pay for it, big time, and that's what happens. Unfortunately, that's what happens. Sometimes, um, yes, being right wing, there's a tendency to favor the police a little bit more, but a lot of the times they need to be held accountable for the things they do, because none of them, uh, not everything that they do is really innocent a lot of the time. So, or innocent sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying, and if there are any cops watching this, I'm not saying that you're a horrible, evil person. And I think that a lot of these cops, they probably do have good intentions, because obviously, if there's somebody who's going to kill himself, you want to do something in your power to prevent him from killing himself. But there's a reason why they have people who are trained in crisis negotiation or whatever, or people who are specifically
Mm.
supposed to talk people out of doing that. If I don't know if you've seen Cheers, but it's like uh Frasier. This is spoilers, by the way, but his
Wait,
wife is
right?
gonna leave. Yeah,
You
Frasier
see,
was in Cheers.
he was in Cheers. Oh wow.
Yeah, that's where he got his stars. The show Frasier is a spin-off show from Cheers. He came in after the first couple seasons. Originally, he was a guest star, I think, and then anyways. But
Mhm.
and I mean, this is sort of humorous. He's threatening to jump jump out the window because Lilith's going to leave him or whatever. And and the police are trying to page the police, or the fire people are trying to page the psychiatrist to get this guy to stop jumping out the window. And they're trying to page him. They're paging him. So but they didn't know that, but effectively they were trying to page the guy who's jumping out the window to get him to talk himself out of jumping out the window. Um, but one of the firefighters was like, he'll never work in this town again. But anyways, that was before they. I don't know if they figured it out. But I mean, the fact remains is, you don't just there's a right way to handle something, and there's a wrong way to handle something. To quote Duck, there are two ways to go about something. There's the wrong way or the Great Western way. Uh, you know, the I mean the I mean loyalties to one of the big four railway companies aside. Uh, I'm an LNER fanboy myself, but I mean, there's just a way to go about things that's not going to help them. I mean, you're not going to. I mean, like, what if the person who's committing suicide has PTS or has shell shock, and he hears that knock on the door, and now suddenly he's back to that moment where his platoon is getting rate mortar fires raining down. Oh
Mm.
yeah, that's gonna help him. You know, I
Yep.
mean it's like what is what and I'm not I mean how many I don't I think we're kind of starting to beat this topic to the ground, but I don't think that a I think that a better thing to do, as opposed to having somebody who's going there with the specific purpose of taking someone's gun away, is maybe a law where it's made clear that this is in no way going to be on the books, but they have somebody, they have a therapist or whatever, come to the house or talk to it and talk to the guy and make it clear this isn't going to be on your record. This isn't going to prevent you from doing anything in the future. This is just me talking to you because your friend is concerned and he knows that he's not in the best position to help you, and so that's why they called me. That's why he called me and the government called me or whatever, and I'm here to just talk to you. Okay, and make that clear that it's not gonna nobody's gonna think ill of you for this. Once this is done, the record is gonna be deleted. You know, it's over. Okay, just make it clear that this is one guy. Well, yeah, but burn the bureaucratic paperwork afterwards. But of course, that requires a basic level of trust in the government, which that kind of sinks that plan right
Isn't the
there.
most high today. Let's just say that. Like, trust in the government's at an all-time low. So
Yeah, so
that's
that plan
all.
kind of goes out the window. But something. I mean, like have the priest come in. You know, um, and getting and that kind of ties into the mental health issue, is that people don't have anything to live for these days. I mean,
Yep.
like, why? I mean, do you think? I mean, because like, do you think a young person, a young guy, a young man if the school shooter had something to 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 live for, he's not gonna. Nobody's gonna just shoot up a place that they have something to live for. Nobody's gonna do something so selfish as taking other people's life just to get the publicity.
And
Um,
that's ultimately like that's what I was saying earlier. Like, you have value as a human, and you need to have value in yourself with the things you do, with the job you have, and unfortunately, the way American society is, both governmentally and economically, you're just kind of kicked to the kicked to the curb for the most part, and you're just kind of this agent that's isolated, that's just kind of on his own. And when you have no job, the government doesn't care about you. Even if they throw you a check every now and again, they don't care about you. They're not willing to cut you a break with taxes. They're not willing to, they're not really willing to be person to person with you. So you're dealing with a faceless government. You're dealing with a faceless corporations taking your job, a faceless government, uh, kind of on your back for not paying taxes because you physically can't pay taxes because you're poor. You're homeless. It just all piles up, and when you're dealing with a homeless person, a lot of the time they're dealing with mental health problems. They're dealing with things that have been unchecked by people. They're dealing with problems with the government. They're running from a warrant. They're running from stuff like that. They're scared. There's stuff like that. Society's forgotten about them. And that's the same way with these kind of people. A lot of the time, they're just kind of forgotten about, and a faceless society forgets about you. It just kind of
yeah.
feels hopeless. And when you have these situations like internal gun laws, okay, red flag laws. This person's mentally ill, is on the brink of suicide. and then you have a police come in, take your guns. It might force you to be more drastic than you should be. You know.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's just that the
I would love.
and a lot of the
Yeah. Brief aside. I would love Will. I would love Will. I wish Will was here to comment on that. I
yeah.
blame Protestant work ethic for this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do blame the
Will
Protestants.
yours.
Well, yeah, no, I mean the we haven't done much prot bashing this episode. Very unfortunate. I didn't even
This
really
episode's been all over the place. I kind of like it. We need a casual episode. I saw that
yeah.
one episode that what was that movie episode that we did?
Poor Man's Movies, or
Oh
no,
my
no,
god,
not Poor Man's Movies. That was Everyone's a Critic was the one where we actually reviewed movies.
that was upwards. Poor man's movies. That was upwards of 1,000 people watched that.
Well, actually, no.
What
Poor Man's Movies wasn't a fun episode though. Poor Man's Movies was that was a statistical anomaly where a bunch of people from India, a bunch of Indians, for whatever reason, clicked on the video. They didn't watch it very long, but it was counted as a view because YouTube doesn't really. A view should be watching like the majority of a thing, like even if that's like a podcast, you watch it in several segments. But whatever,
So
that's
word to the
beside the
wise
point.
people: reload the page a few times. We need to.
Leave leave. If you have to kill your phone's battery, why don't you consider putting on an episode of Monarchist Minute and walking away? It helps us. It helps our analytics. Um, But anyways, yeah, no, I mean the thing though, is that man, my train of thoughts derailing me because I'm tired and I know I have a long night ahead of me. But um, I think that I don't know. I think we need a society where people know that there is a purpose to their lives, and society can't tell somebody, what exactly their purpose is to be, I can't tell whether or not you, dear viewer, if you're a guy, if you're supposed to be a priest or a brother or a layman or a lay single man or a married man. I can't. If you're a woman, I can't tell if you're supposed to be a nun, a consecrated virgin, a single woman or a married woman. I can't tell that. But the fact remains is you are supposed to be one of those things. You're supposed to. There is something that God wants you to do. To seek and is that's going to fulfill you. And if you're a guy that may be, being a married man and raising a wife and kids, or you may be a priest and have the amazing responsibility of every day offering a sacrifice for the living and the dead, um, and saying a mass that will procure graces for the church, past, present, and future. Uh, you know, but the fact remains is you do have a purpose, and the problem with the modern world is especially because we live in the society where you choosing your own path is emphasized. If people can't think, if people can't think of something to do, and they can't think of a life of anything other than quiet desperation because they don't know what they want to do, then it's going to lead to some dark places. I don't know what I'm supposed to be, but I know I'm supposed to be something. I don't know if I'm supposed to be a priest or a brother or a father. I think I kind of want to be a father, but I don't but I know I'm supposed to be one of those things because I know God's real and I know he's called me to be something. Um, but in this modern society, people don't think that, because nobody, I mean, and a lot of these young men, they don't have an influence from their father to get an idea of what being a father's like, because a lot of these people, because most of these mass shooters, they either have an absent father or an estranged relationship, and the father isn't being a very good father to them. So to him, so it's if you don't have a sense and direction in life, then suddenly suicide or just making a name for yourself, because being a mass shooter is a pretty easy way to make a name for yourself, especially because the media loves to be like, here's this guy, here's how he stacks. you know I don't know if they necessarily do comparisons between one mass shooter and another, but the and I mean, it's, if you don't have a purpose in life, if you don't, well, I mean, you have a purpose in life, but if you don't know what your purpose in life is, and you live in this society where people think that you have to make that you have to find out what you want to do as opposed to what you're being called to do, and people can't figure out what they're being called, and people can't figure out what they want to do, then people are going to feel worthless. So, yeah, that's another condemnation of the modern atheistic mindset, where an atheist wonder why they're depressed because they think that love is only a chemical reaction in your brain. It's like, what does it mean to be a good person? Sharon, you replaced thousands of years of philosophy and religion with do what you feel good, and you wonder what it means to be a good person. Take another antidepressant and get out of my sight. It's quoting from a meme there, but yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I don't know. I had something to say, but it just kind of slipped my mind.
Yeah,
But
that's how I've been feeling for the last half hour.
um, but
So
yeah,
you guys are
ultimately,
still talking. I've been gone for like what, 45 minutes now.
I
uh,
no, you were around after 10, I think. I don't
Uh,
know. We were still on the
I-
same gun topic.
what are you talking
We
about?
spent
It's
we spent an
nine.
hour. Hold on. We spent an oh okay. So we spent an hour and 40 minutes talking about the gay marriage thing tangentially, but it was mainly monarchist philosophy. And then and we've only spent 43 minutes talking about this gun thing, and now you think that we're spending too much time on a topic. Is that it, Darth?
yes.
Oh yeah,
Fundamentally,
I I I I remember what I was saying.
Oh,
Um, monarchy provides government with a human face at the very base level. Um, it provides government with a human face, a stable, long-lasting human face that's there for probably decades. Usually, a monarch's reign is about a decade or so, and I don't know the average length, but it's for a decent amount of time, and it's a human face. You're not dealing with this bureaucratical machine of this eldritch beast of a government that we have. Um, in a president, the most you'll get out of a president's like what, 2 terms, 8 years. That's chump change for like Queen Elizabeth or something like that. It's just it, it provides a human face. So at the very least, you're not dealing with this faceless system that we have now. I mean, yeah, at least with you could say with Trump, his government was kind of his government because he was such a character that it just kind of became the government became like you had that face attached to government for a brief moment in time. But I don't think Trump could even do that, honestly.
um, I mean, the problems with like liberal governments is it is purposely built to obfuscate blame. You can
Yeah,
never you can never really assign blame to
that's
anyone.
what drew me to monarchy because when a monarch does something bad, he has no one to blame but himself. If he himself did something bad, he has no one to blame. He can't blame the last guy because the last guy is his dad and probably had the same agenda he had and probably carried himself in the same way he did. And plus, you don't want to throw your dad under the bus. I mean, you might, but you know,
I mean,
and
I'll
plus, you've probably been on the throne for what, 10 years now.
it's
You're not.
actually more common for the grandson to idealize the
Yeah,
grandfather and continue the grandfather's policy. Like like say the Russian Tsardom was a great example of this, where like one one emperor would be like a great reformer, and then the next one would be like a good conservative that doesn't really change anything, and like really focus on like the home front. Then you get the
Mhm.
next monarch, and he's like focused on his grandfather's policies again. Like this is like the difference between like Ivan the Great versus Ivan the Conqueror. Was the
Mhm.
Ivan the Great was focused on expelling the Mongols from the Russian land, then Ivan the Conqueror, and then there
Hey,
skipped a generation that
and you
didn't really
notice
do anything.
yeah, you notice when they do that kind of stuff, it's not really a tearing down of the previous monarch's works. It's more of a change of direction. It's like you're guiding a ship. It's not
Well,
like they're constantly burning down. So like I would kind of, if you wanted like an analogy, I would kind of describe republics as, okay, I'm building this bridge that I'm going to then burn down and build another bridge. At least with a monarch, you're dealing from monarch to monarch. They'll change direction, but they won't work. They won't pride themselves on destroying the previous monarch's legacy. If that makes any sense, they might want to change direction, but they're less likely to say, uh, my dad, I'm gonna destroy all of his legacy.
mhm. Yeah, that I mean also like another great example is like the difference between Kaiser Wilhelm II and his father um Friedrich Karl the fourth, I believe. I don't know. He only reigned for 80 days, that's why he's like so unmemorable, but um
Mm.
uh Wilhelm the first was the supreme autocrat type. He ruled he ruled Germany as the chief warlord of Germany and was very anti-liberal. Frederick III. Okay, thanks for the correcting, Krieger. Um, but then Frederick III, he was very much a liberal crown prince, and for most of his reign, he was kept away from the German state because, like Bismarck and Wilhelm I knew for a fact that he wanted to liberalize the country and make it more democratic in line with England's constitutional monarchy. But then Wilhelm II was instead more he admired his grandfather as being a great soldier king, being the great autocrat of the German people, and he very much emulated his grandfather in his reign. And he didn't hate his father, but he wasn't going to emulate his style of leadership that he was going
Hmm.
to take up.
Hey, at least, and obviously there's, which I actually enjoy. I think that there's something beautiful about monarchs when they take the throne. They personalize the monarchy and like fulfill their like they they personify like their agendas are more personified by the person as opposed to like any party platform or something. They're kind of just like they're an extension of themselves. It's almost like the passion of the monarch is the nation. The vocation of a monarch is their nation, and how that develops is kind of unique to them. Um, and yeah, you have similarities, you have rhyming views, and you're only going to have so many types of leaders among monarchs. But the beautiful thing is, like, the monarch is always kind of their own person uh, in some ways, and there is some through line. Um, but it's always kind of personal, and it's always kind of unique, while also respecting. I mean, unless you're a brand new dynasty, say, or a brand new line, like you took the throne from somebody else that you don't even know, or something like that, which kind of happens sometimes. But that's probably in the most extreme case, and at
I
that
mean,
point,
even then, though, like if you take over from a previous dynasty, you still see yourself as a legacy of the
mm,
previous emperors. Like, say, like in the Holy Roman Emperor Empire, like it was an elective monarchy, so it changed dynasties almost every single time. But each emperor would still emulate, like he still saw himself as a continuous line of emperors, not necessarily because they're family, but because they held this divine responsibility over the Holy Roman Empire. And even but even the Holy Roman Emperors saw themselves as a continuation as the Roman emperors too back in the day.
I
Like,
think that's what everybody wants to know. What separates like monarchy from like just totalitarian governments? And I think one, the authoritarian aspect is kind of optional, and two, um, totalitarian governments put all power and legacy into themselves. So, like, for instance, if Hitler died, say if Germany won World War II, and Hitler survived, when he died, the Reich would just collapse into a civil war, probably,
I mean
because
that's what happened in our own history too.
yeah,
Like
like
there when Hitler well, not even before he died, but also like when he was
mm,
just when he was just cut off in Berlin, like you saw Hermann Goering attempt to establish a new government in the southern part of
yeah,
Germany, but then Admiral Karl Dönitz he was proclaimed president of the German Reich, and he took up a government in the north.
yeah.
Um,
It's just you when there's no, like, I would say prestige, but prestige or something in your line, and like stability in the government is what monarchy is all about. When you don't
Well,
have that and you claim to be a monarchy, don't know, because monarchies are predicated on reigning, having a long line of succession, and from generation to generation building up um, your house, your legacy, your ancestors' legacy, and even if you're an elective monarch, kind of the legacy of the crown in general. It's still really powerful. It's not. It's not you. It's you and all of the monarchs that made this nation great. It's not just you. And that's kind of the big thing that everybody misses when they look into what monarchy is. Um, the monarch represents an unbroken chain going all the way back into the history of the nation, um, as opposed to this dictator that rules off personality and kind of rules on their own merit, and then just dies and their entire empire falls apart because they created a foundation built just on themselves, and with a government system that just doesn't work. It doesn't work with democracies. It doesn't work with totalitarian governments. It just eventually falls apart because you're not going to have a consistent line of
um,
stability.
yeah, I'm going to say a quote actually from Kaiser Wilhelm II on Adolf Hitler because it fundamentally does
Yeah, I know
defer
the
these
quote.
two.
It's
But
perfect for
for the audience though,
it's
Kaiser
perfect.
Kaiser Wilhelm in 1938, speaking about Hitler, quote, "There's a man alone without family, without God. Why should he be human? Oh, without a doubt, he's sincere, but this very sincerity keeps him apart, out of touch with men and reality. He builds legions, but he doesn't build a nation. A nation is created by families, a religion, traditions. It is made up out of the hearts of mothers, the wisdom of fathers, the joy and exuberance of children. Our there, in brackets pointing to Germany from the Netherlands, an all-swallowing state, disdained of humanity's dignity and the ancient structures of our race, sets itself up in part of everything else, and the man who alone incorporates in himself this whole state has neither a god to honor, nor a dynasty to conserve, nor a past to consult."
Yeah,
yeah,
that
I heard a bit of that quote. I didn't realize that that was the context of it. I heard a bit of that quote. You know, the hearts of mothers and you know joy and exuberance of children thing. Um, man, that was beautiful.
that quote is kind of spoken in different words. It's why I am a monarchist. Like, it, a monarch never really stands alone, and that's what That's what everybody just doesn't get about monarchism. Monarchism is in between the past and the present and the future. It's the bridge of stability from generation to generation. It's not this, and of course you have Democrats who, and Democrats, Republicans, just any of those, and I'm talking about those in the governmental systems proposed. They just kind of see it as this big authoritarian mass that, I am king and I yada yada yada, and when I die, that's it. I'm just like any other tyranny or any other thing
Well,
like that.
that's
I die.
because liberalism is built upon the idea of hubris guiding government. I
Yeah,
I am the one who is the wisest to rule. I am the most intelligent. I should be able to pick the leadership over me. It's hubris. And back in the ancient Greek tragedies, they would have been stranded on an island as punishment by the gods for their hubris.
yeah. It's that's monarchy is beautiful. Like, and I wish more people would see that, and I wish more people would just kind of realize that in in a monarchist society, in an ideal monarchist society, people like the guy that defended the shooter in that mall, those people would be made knights. A society built on virtue, and the most virtuous person in the nation being that monarch. It's something that can stay, and this virtuous person can stay in power for as long as they're alive. And I think people are cynical in this society. Like, they're constantly thinking about, and of course you have to be constantly thinking about it, as people who are constantly thinking about governments, like we are, kind of, for the most part. Um, what about the bad monarchs? And I it's our job to think about that, but it would be such a joy one day, um, to not be as cynical and not have to be as cynical about our governmental systems, and look at our monarchy that we have made, hopefully one day, and say, wow, that virtuous man or woman is my ruler. That virtuous man or woman is my monarch. And
Hmm.
that's the most important thing. Like, we're not,
I
and
mean,
that's
there's this great
the
quote from
monarch.
Bavaria. There's this great quote from Bavaria, where they refer to their monarchy as the king beyond the mountain, because
Wow.
it was the peasant didn't have to think about these things of governance because the king's affairs did not interfere with the peasants' lives, and the
That's
peasants' lives
almost like that almost sounds like something from Lord of the Rings, the king beyond the mountains or something like
Yeah, but that's how Bavarians viewed their monarchy because they had the
that.
same dynasty for nearly 1,000 years. It was very stable. Same dynasty produced excellent monarchs generationally, and monarchs that also, like, let's just say, libertarians would have loved medieval Bavaria because they would have never had to
That's
deal with
that's what I
tax.
love. That's what I love about, like, nobody gets monarchism. Like, they all think it's kind of this, um
Authoritarian
it,
system.
yeah, this authoritarian, like, totalitarian authoritarian state where you can't go to the bathroom without the government knowing about it. For the most part, you get that from democracies, or at least it gets led to from democracy. Like, you
Well,
have
out of
you
Plato's four,
know
there's the four stages of government that happen according to Plato. You have the first stage, which is the monarchy, the most natural and least encumberancing form of government, and just generally most natural to human nature. But then comes the oligarchy, which either if that's made up of aristocracy or a merchant elite, etc., that rule through finance and coercion. Um, they typically overthrow the monarchy and put themselves in because they have some sort of right in their mind. And then you get
sounds familiar.
democracy. Yeah.
Hmm.
But then you get monarch. I mean, not monarchy. Then you get democracy, because suddenly the people think, well, we should have the right over these oligarchs to rule ourselves. Then you got democracy. But then out of democracy, it's the most susceptible to
Tyranny.
coercion through rhetoric, and you get those demagogues, and eventually you get a demagoguery in that makes themselves a tyranny, which is the final form of government after
That doesn't bode well for good old America, does it?
Every single tyranny comes out of a democracy. It's all throughout human history.
I mean, and
Don't
we're
worry, guys. I'm sure we'll be in this decrepit state for a very long time.
we. Hey guys, that sounds a lot. Wait a minute. Are you telling me that my republic was founded on an oligarchy? You got to be kidding me. I thought it was a good old fashioned rugged American revolution. What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, I thought it
And
was Joe Public getting together and
then it turned into a democracy, and now we're at the tyranny phase, guys.
What do you mean? America can never be a tyranny.
the Constitution says so.
Yep, that piece of paper says so, so it has to be. Because
I
it
mean, we
is a
put that
religious
piece of
tome.
paper in a hermetically sealed container. I mean, obviously, the Constitution is physically going to come out of the thing and punch any would-be tyrant with its hemp paperness. Even
Uncle
though I
Sam
think if anyone,
step right out of that Constitution, and he's going to make you sorry, Mr. Dictator. You're going to be
Uncle
sorry.
Sam wants you to go out
You
the window.
you better you're going to be sorry when the people who have elected you vote you out of office. You're going to be real sorry.
This is why I have a disdain for plebeian democracy. It leads to tyranny.
You guys mean to tell me that having a very uh persuasible, like a very easily persuaded populace who can vote in anybody that they want to. You guys think that's a bad idea for some reason, and I don't seem to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of
It's not
uh,
like the populace can be manipulated or anything.
yeah. I mean, it's weird to think that I don't know because there's this weird tendency amongst liberals to think that this is our liberal democracy is the be all end all. It's like, yeah, look at your beloved Weimar and because even if you guys don't agree, because you're like Weimar was Germany was essentially us is essentially us now, except of course we don't have coups every 15 minutes. Yeah, it was probably yeah when you're and that's another thing. I know this isn't about Weimar, but when your constitution specifically gives the president the power to just declare martial law every 5 minutes, you know you're probably not dealing with the world's most stable state.
It's peculiar because just it was almost like they were, and then a lot of other governments didn't want them to succeed because they lost a war.
Well, okay, the thing with that is Germany really could Germany really actually could have paid its war debts. Now, obviously, Germany's economy wasn't exactly doing great, considering that it wasn't anything like it was before the war. But Germany still had a pretty large industrial base. Germany just didn't. The German government's policy on it was to pay the token was to pay the debt for a little while and then stop it because they wanted to fund their social programs or whatever. Okay, the SPD was in a position financially to pay off the debt, especially because they had gotten the German public. They had basically told the German public that don't worry, guys, your gold is worthless. Just switch to this fiat currency, exchange it with us, or whatever. Then the SPD suddenly had access to all the gold, now didn't they? Which is a strategy FDR pulled in a not so polite manner when he basically told everybody, yeah, now it's illegal to own gold unless it's in like jewelry form or coin collection or whatnot.
Wait, Charles. Now, do you mean that in my good American freedom loving country that somebody acted like a tyrant? Is that what you're telling me? Oh my gosh! Wow!
Yeah,
Wow!
I'm telling you that FDR was not a good president. And also the New Deal
Are you telling
did not.
me that every person that gets elected by the fair decision of the people is legitimate and does everything right? Are you telling me that's a lie, Charles? Are you telling me that we can have bad presidents too? Unbelievable.
I mean, I'm just look. I know, John. That look. Okay, I know that this is hard for you to accept. I know this is sort of like being told the tooth fairy isn't real. Um, you have been told that, right?
Next thing you're gonna tell me is Santa Claus isn't real. Come on now.
Hey, he's a resident of North Pole, Alaska. You know what? You can't convince me that there isn't a guy that we call Saint Nick, even though he doesn't really have that much in common with the Saint Nick, or the real Saint Nick, besides putting presents in stockings. And but anyways,
I'm not
he's also a
all.
Canadian citizen.
Oh, that
Canada gives Santa Claus 100% Canadian citizenship. So if you wipe out the entire nation of Canada, Santa Claus would still be flying in a sleigh and would be the last Canadian left.
that's a nightmare. That automatically ruins it. If Santa is Canadian, then I don't know. You're telling me Saint Nicholas of Myra is a citizen of Canada?
Okay, the real Saint Nicholas isn't a citizen of Canada, but our weird like
Amal-
American concept
I mean,
of Santa,
pagan.
of jolly old of j- yeah,
Our
our American concept of him is a
our
Canadian.
neo,
So
our neoliberal amalgamation, commercial amalgamation of a Christian saint. Are you telling me that he's a citizen of Canada?
I
Uh,
think he's also a citizen of Norway.
So that proves that what is that?
no.
Neoliberalism is right because
Okay.
Nick was a
Okay.
neoliberal.
I have to address Krieger in the chat. He's saying St. Nicholas was a cockroach, aka Turk. No, Anatolia was not populated by Turks at that period when St. Nicholas was alive.
Yeah, he was a
Um,
Greek.
yeah, he was Greek ethnically. The Turks wouldn't come to Anatolia for a few
Turks were
centuries
still
after that.
Yeah. Were they chilling in the Caucasus still or something?
No, that they were in this
yeah,
central. They were in the Central Asian plains.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
They was chilling.
They
Uh, yeah. So no, I mean, yeah, but you know, although actually there's a few Roman Catholics or Catholics in Turkey now, so he
There
may
was
be
a
talking about them as saints or.
I mean
there was a
there's
there was
um
a member of the wolves. I forget exactly, like that they go by like the white or the gray wolves. Yes, they're a far right organization in Turkey. And they attempted to assassinate, I believe it was Pope John Paul II. One of their members did, and after that he converted to Catholicism.
Oh yeah, that was the Pope. The Pope personally came in and talked to him. It's like, oh yeah,
He
that's
forgave him.
based. That is pretty based. Um yeah. Yeah, Turkey is an interesting thing. Remember when they tried to be Rome for a little while?
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
That's the dumbest thing I ever. Okay, that'd be like us taking over Canada and claiming ourselves to be the true white North or whatever. It's like, yeah, just
yeah,
because we own Ottawa doesn't make us Canadian. But okay.
like it's funny like it's kind of the same type of view of like we're the third Rome or we're the second Rome and all this
I mean,
stuff. And I'm just like, guys, come on,
I,
just be
I,
you.
well, I mean,
I,
Russia.
well, yeah, the Roman Empire fell in 1917, guys. I
No,
mean,
I
I
mean,
actually
Yeah, yeah,
no, I
the Rome
mean, here's. I don't
17.
know.
What do
I think that the Holy Roman Empire still kind of exists because there's one treaty that says any baptized Christian was a Roman citizen. So how do you do, fellow Romans? So yeah, it's just that the Pope needs to get on the whole crowning an emperor business. But in regards to Russia being the third Rome, I mean, I think they have a better claim to that than the Ottomans do, because a lot of Byzantine, officials or whatever, went to Russia afterwards. So they kind of brought, at least I guess initially, would have brought a Byzantine administration. So
I just love the thought of like a millennia of people just trying to like write themselves into Roman history is just wild to me.
well, I mean, you have to understand that like our concept of segmenting the Roman Empire by the day when or the date when what was it, the Visigoths or whoever sacked Rome. Nobody at the time really saw that as the death of the empire. I mean, even the guys who sacked
Mhm.
Rome sent the imperial diadem back to Constantinople as a way of saying there was one empire again, not two. I mean, nobody saw it as the death of the Roman Empire back then. I mean, we call it the death of the Roman Empire now, but that would have been a foreign
It wasn't really
concept.
the Roman Empire. It was kind of the transition of Western Rome to Eastern Rome, and then you had Eastern Rome just being the only Rome left. That
Well, yeah,
now,
no, I mean, and then the Western Empire. I mean, the establishment of the Holy Roman Empire was really just the reestablishment of the Western Empire. I mean, it was. I mean, it was. I mean, it was, and of course, a lot of the Easterners got upset by that because they saw, some random German being, or some random Frank being crowned as like some random peasant. But no, I mean, it was. I mean, nobody in Europe saw this. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, they just saw it maybe as a return to form. They didn't. They didn't like. I mean, they thought the empire was still around because it was and it is. The empire hasn't left us. It's I mean, as long as there are baptized Christians around, which there probably is going to be till the end of time, or till the second coming, uh, there's the empire.
see,
You're the empire.
I've always seen the HRE as a very very weird thing. Like it's like not like weird as in bad, but it's just very interesting to me.
Well,
Well,
I
the way
mean,
that
it was considered a super nation. Like it wasn't. You got to get rid of this idea of like a nation state in today's context, where
Yeah,
The Holy Roman Empire was seen as this like divine overlordship of the entire Christian world. And
honestly, it was almost like a theocratic version and a more based version of the UN. Like that's kind of what it was, but it was like in Germany and like
well,
other.
yeah, no, I
well,
mean,
that was the seat of the empire. Like the official boundaries of the Holy Roman Empire, like they look weird on paper, but actually, like you can say pretty much all of the Roman Catholic world was part of the Holy Roman Empire
Yeah,
because
at one point it
technically,
was all of Europe,
yeah,
but
no,
then
I
you
mean,
no, it wasn't. I'm saying this because when Henry VIII schismed from Rome, he technically had to write a letter of cessation from the Holy Roman Empire, even though
yeah.
like on paper England wasn't a member, but in spirit England was a subject of the emperor.
yeah, and I mean that's really the way it should be. And people, the way that Mo is set up now, we want to call the person who will rule the country the emperor, but I don't think that should be the thing. It should be the case. I think we should have a king, and then we would be subject to the Holy Roman Emperor whenever the Pope decides,
I
You
mean,
know,
if we brought
to,
back the Holy Roman Empire in the States, it would just be kind of like the HRE position
yeah,
where now we are the beacon for Christendom.
yeah. So
And
I mean, but he would be he would be the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, but he'd be like the King of America or the Grand Duke of
very
Washington, or something. I
well,
don't know.
he'd have multiple titles like the
Yeah,
actual emperors had. Like, say, Kaiser Wilhelm II was also King of Prussia
or
while being
pres-
German
believe
emperor.
that America is now the beacon of Christianity. That's just mind blowing to me. Well,
well, I mean,
actually, beacon is Poland. They are the most. They are
we're saying in the future.
in the future. Well, yeah, hopefully,
Well, yeah. Hopefully we become Catholic and we're like
hopefully we can be
Europe.
based as Poland. At
Well,
least
yeah. No, I mean, hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, all of us get on the same track. But I mean, it would be kind of, I guess, humorous if we
do
had
they
to
actually
knock some sense into
do,
Europe.
do they actually legalistically have Christ as their king, like
I think
Poland?
so.
Yes,
Yeah.
Like legal, like if
yes,
I look at the
yes,
leader of the government of
yes.
Poland,
Well,
hopefully.
I mean, like on Google, of course, they're going to be secularists and say, well, it was
They
symbolic.
kind of claim
But,
that
but the Polish themselves do say yes. He Jesus Christ is the literal king of Poland.
King of Poland. I want to look this up.
Yeah, he's yeah, no, I mean,
When I look at it's the
That
the
Dudo
freaking
guy.
minister. Get this out of my face. We need to look up monarchs of Poland.
Juan Sobieski. What a great monarch that they had. Chased those Turks out of Austria.
yeah,
They don't have. They just have pretenders. That's garbage. Come on now. They just have Jesus. Well, they only have it technically. I don't know. I'm looking at it and it just doesn't have it.
I mean,
Anyways, yeah,
they had a whole coronation for him, so it's like, yeah, pretty much sealed the deal.
yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah, base Poland.
yeah.
Um,
Poland. I
uh,
mean, I kind of like that thought, but like we need a Jesus is like the King of Kings, so we need the King of Poland. We need like Jesus. Jesus is up the rum, so to speak.
yeah, he's yeah. I mean the Carlos, the cry of the Carlos, Vivo Cristo Rey. Yeah, I think that. I mean, that'd be a good. I mean, that'd actually be a good motto for one of the Spanish, like the states of the Union that were like Spanish influence, like a hypothetical future where Texas just be. I mean, that'd be. I mean, like of all the states, if I could just pick one state to just be like the one where
Oh
Catholicism
my!
just takes over and then emanates from, it'd be Texas, just
Oh
because
my!
Catholic cowboys. But
If
uh,
if Texas, oh my gosh, if Texas becomes a monarchist and Catholic, I would just even if it was just monarchist, I could deal with that.
well,
But
no, no. I mean, the point. But I mean, the point is that I don't know, Spanish, like a Spanish influenced state, like uh,
well,
uh,
I mean, I guess it's not that hard for me because I'm only a state away. But I'm already kind of pointing towards Texas. Texas is kind of based, even though they're planning to secede. That's ridiculous.
yeah, we can talk about that some other time because it's like, guys,
And
no, we need you.
I mean, I kind of see it as the late Roman Empire stages because that's kind of where America is at. The rampant degeneracy in the capital and the provinces wishing to break away. And I don't know, like history rhymes. Like it doesn't
Guys,
repeat, but it does rhyme.
guys, we are at in 1 minute we are at 3 hours.
Oh well, the 10:02 would be 3 hours because we delayed a couple minutes of starting the
Oh, okay.
podcast.
Yeah, 2 minutes then. Whatever. But yeah, this is our long by like 30 minutes or something.
This is our longest by over half an hour,
And we only have like 3 people. This is unbelievable.
and we still have a topic to get through.
We still have a
Yes.
topic to get.
So what's the
That's another
final
thing I had to
topic?
remove out. Okay, so we're ready to move on.
Yes.
Okay, maybe there's still time. I can set thing to export and then sleep before midnight. Probably not. Okay, gosh. So
This
Full
is
of
going to be a
pain.
the final
monster.
this this thing will probably still be exporting when I wake up. The final topic, because I gotta wake up at 5:45. The final topic is Fauci, Anthony Fauci. The
Wait,
droplets guy
I
may
forgot
or may not be retiring.
I forgot about Fauci. How could I forget about our
Our Lord and
Supreme
Savior.
General?
Yeah. No. So he might be retiring. He might not be retiring. When I added this to the docket of things to do, I thought he was definitely going to be retiring. But Fauci's like, I'm not going to be retiring. But there's this conflicting thing, like stories from a couple hours ago or a few hours ago, where his pension would be larger. His first year pension would be larger than the president's annual salary, or something like that. It's like
Oh
four
my!
hundred $14,000 because obviously, he if you haven't made enough, okay, like I get the concept of a pension for people who are like working class or whatever. But like if you're in that government position, I'm sure that government position was paying you very well. If you need a pension to live on, maybe you don't deserve it because if you're
How
being
much
that
are they
fiscally
paying?
irresponsible.
Like, how much are they paying? Like, what is his pension?
His first year pension, I think, would be $414,000. So like the president's
Uh,
salary, $400,000 a year. So uh,
mercy. That oh my goodness, $400,000. Oh
Yeah.
my, so much money. Like I know, like I guess the government just likes spending money, but
Uh,
still, that's still a lot of money
let's
for
see. Dr. Anthony
that.
Fauci made $417,608 in 2019, the latest year for which federal salaries are available. And that made him not only the highest paid doctor in the federal government, but the highest paid out of all 4 million federal employees. In fact, Dr. Fauci, this is from Forbes, I guess, even made uh even made more than the $400,000 salary of the President of the United States. All salary data was collected by the OpenBooks.com via Freedom of Information Act request. The only federal employees whose salaries were funded by taxpayers were included in the study. Therefore, Tennessee Valley Authority CEO Jeffrey Lash, whose salary is paid by revenues of the corporation owned by the federal government, which is basically the same thing, was not included. The 2.5 million. That's how much Dr. Fauci, director of National Institute for Health, NIH, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, and the current chief medical advisor to the president, will make his salary from 2019 to 2024 if he stays in his post through the end of the current administration, or doesn't didn't already get a raise. Whew, boy,
Me
this
that this guy is it before COVID got paid more. I I don't think Trump took a salary.
no, I think
No,
because
he legally had to take $1. Like that's if you are in those positions, you legally have to take $1.
yeah, it's
What?
like it's like some stupid thing. Like there's this music, like there's the Flint. I think there's either this it's either the music, it's either the board that governs all these cultural places or the places themselves, but they legally have to pay rent every year, which is $1. It's like, I mean, it's like when and going back to Cheers, when Sam Malone was buying back his bar. Spoilers, by the way. They're like, we'll sell it. They eventually got sick and tired of running the place, where he did some important thing for the people who owned it. And they're like, we'll sell it to you for $1. And he's like going through his wallet, and he's just like, I have like 63 cents, and they're like, we'll take it. Um, so you can even get $1. But yeah, it's, I don't know. Legal things are stupid like that. Like, like your grandma sells you her Buick for $1, even
Full
because
of
she
that.
can't just gift it to you.
America's full of that stuff. Like, oh, technically, they're due to some like weird
Law written in
highfalutin
1957.
law from like 1930, from like 1789. You're gonna have to pay me $1 for some reason, or like those stupid laws, like, hey, you can't like do something random outside at this particular time of day. You ever heard of those like weird laws that are
Yeah,
just like,
well, I can't remember. It's one of the western states, but it's still legal for you to kill Indians from your horse-drawn or from your wagon. So if you're riding along and you see an Indian that you don't like, then
that's bad?
I mean, hey, I mean,
Somebody,
I would okay. I don't want to see this happen because I mean somebody getting killed or at the very least getting shot. But I would just love to see that case getting brought before a court. Like they're like, we're trying you for murder, but the law says this, and this going to the Supreme Court.
but Your
I
Honor,
don't want to see anyone get
one
hurt, but I
law
would
that
love to
was
see that go to a
during the
court.
frontier age. Your Honor, this one law that was written before the state was even, where is it? Before the state was even a state. It still technically counts. So, can I leave now?
No, obviously, like the age of the law doesn't particularly matter, and I guess I kind of said something in the way that made it sound like that. But still, I mean, it's still perfectly legal for you to shoot an Indian from your horse-drawn. I mean, like that's one of those laws. Okay, if somebody actually did that, like if there was somebody who really didn't like somebody who happened to be an Indian, and I don't think that that's going to happen because that would require you actually going through the expense of getting a horse-drawn wagon and then going through all that time of going to the Indian reservation and then be like, "Hey, Joe, what do you know?" And they're like,
Well,
you
you
know.
would have to lead them onto state land, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, it's, I mean, I don't know. Indian reservations are weird with how their relationship with state, like, because state coppers can't. I mean, at least where I am at, state coppers don't have immediate jurisdiction in an Indian reservation. They had to be like invited
My
in by
honest
this. I
opinion,
don't know. That's weird.
we need to like make at least the sizable ones in the states and just get it like officially. They're just kind of in a weird spot, and I'm like, just make them a state or whatever.
I mean,
No,
it would be like weird
I don't know.
enclave states. Like,
Yeah,
I
just
don't
go.
know.
You
I'm
move it
for
back.
just the complete abolition of the reservations.
yeah, and also the fact is that each. I mean, like to just make all the Indian reservations one state. I mean, one border gore, which I mean, I guess I play Paradox
You would
games, so
probably
I
have to make it in multiple states,
Well,
probably.
yeah, but you couldn't. But you would have to because like different. I mean, like there are some tribes where they're like close culturally, but like at the end of the day, you're gonna you. I mean, like you can't just put two different tribes together and be like you're now an Iroquois Confederacy s system now. It's like okay, we before the Europeans showed up, we spent most of our time hacking each other to bits. So
Yeah, you probably want to make those people different
yeah,
states. The whole
well,
hacking and slashing and hacking
Well,
thing.
I mean, that's what everybody. I mean, that's just what was happening. I mean, like the Iroquois Confederacy was kind of something unique because it was like these five tribes that were really, you know, similar or whatever culture or like they were.
I've always thought the Iroquois is a very interesting system of government. I don't know much about it, but I've always been intrigued by it.
Apparently, the Iroquois kind of just wanted the treaty system to eventually expand to cover like all the people. So I mean, it'd be interesting if. But they're like, jokes on them. The Holy Roman Empire exists, so yeah, you gotta be subject to that. But anyways, uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Fauci.
So Fauci, we're over 3 hours in now. My computer is not going to be thankful for this. I have to download this first, don't I? Oh, guys, I have to work 10 hours tomorrow. Why did you let me do this? Why did I let you do this?
This stuff just happens.
Because
I had to
I
work.
have to.
Oh, actually, no. It's gonna be 7 hours. It's gonna be it's gonna be 11 hours because I'm gonna probably get there at 7.
Ay ay ay.
Oh, 7 to 6.
Let
Oh,
yeah, let's go back to Fauci and then figure out what we're doing from there. Okay, so like
oh.
Fauci got paid more than even before COVID, which this blows my mind. Even before COVID was a thing, he got paid more than any other federal employee, including the president. This just kind of like blows my mind. This guy is an enigma. I don't know, like, because from what I've heard, he got wrapped up in a lot of a lot of different things, very suspicious things from what I've heard. But
I don't know.
he's
All
like
I
just popped
know.
up one day, like he just popped up after COVID happened.
No, he just he's been around since I believe it was the Reagan administration, and he first
He,
came to prominence with the AIDS thing. So Reagan, uh, Bush Senior, uh, Clinton, then Bush Jr., uh, Barack Obama, Donald. Wait, hold on. Let me count this. Let me count this using both hands. Okay, Reagan, Bush Senior, Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden.
I
He's
think,
served under 7 presidents.
I think we just
He's gonna if he lives much. I mean, like if the queen dies, if we keep him in this position, I mean, he could be like the queen. You know that meme where it's like the queen that shows like the leaders of different countries, like on a timeline. It's just the
I was
queen.
about to say like the Democrat version of Queen Elizabeth. Like
Oh,
he's like the Democrats' Queen Elizabeth.
except he doesn't come with any benefits of stability.
Oh
I
no, definitely not.
mean,
If we ever come under um
a Fauci dictatorship.
a Fauci technocratic dictator, um he's gonna be, I don't know, a technocratic Queen Elizabeth. He's gonna be hooked up with like robotic parts, and he's gonna be brought out on a no, he's gonna be have a bionic body or something like that. Who's ready for like post-human Fauci, guys?
I
Yeah, no, I'm good with skipping that.
Did Plato say anything about some random government official accidentally becoming the dictator? Please, please tell me that's not something that normally happens.
Yeah, Plato
I-
forgot the last phase of government, technocracy by a random government official.
Sleepwalking into technocracy.
I don't.
There needs to be propaganda posters that just have Fauci's eye, like it has Fauci's face, and with like the shadow, you have one side of his face lit up, and then the shadow part, and there's like a red eye.
Lockdowning you to a better tomorrow.
Today there's lockdowns. Tomorrow, there, uh, there's like
Tomorrow, a simulated sky because you're going to be in lockdowns, but it's a bright,
today,
sunny sky.
today, COVID-19. Tomorrow, something I don't know.
uh, I mean, are you getting to the point where you're so tired everything's just funny?
I mean, I'm not particularly like, I'm not loopy, but I am like, I want to
Yeah, because
spice.
it's only 10:13 for you,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
only 9:13 for this guy.
yeah. I mean, I just like the thought of Fauci being like a Terminator, or like turning himself into a Terminator.
He's the T-1000 that can the liquid metal one. He's really running the entire show, just changing forms and voices.
The we're getting like really, really iconic like Lebanon territory, like like wake up sheeple, like the Fauci shadow government is here.
Oh, I'm trying to imagine Anthony Fauci portrayed by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No,
Oh,
no, no,
it's
but
like
no,
Joe Biden
by
portrayed by
that creepy
Nicolas
cop.
Cage.
No, it's by that
That,
creepy cop one in Terminator 2. That was a T-1000. That's the Anthony Fauci.
I could
Oh,
unironically seeing that happen. Like once there's a biopic, because you know that there's going to be an autobiography, like not an autobiography. There's going to be a biopic about Anthony Fauci, and they're going to get a very handsome person to play Anthony Fauci. I would just like to see like Arnold's like old like 90-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Anthony Fauci.
oh, it would be. Okay, we need Chuck. Okay, well, obviously Chuck Norris wouldn't do this, but no, we need Nicolas Cage because Freedom Tunes put the song in my head. Nicolas Cage playing Joe Biden
Oh,
in a movie,
Oh,
that's
and then
yeah.
we need Arnold Schwarzenegger as let's cast this movie. Let's cast the movie about just the COVID, the pandemic. Just the movie about the pandemic. We'll give it the
who's going
working
to play
title. We'll
Trump?
just call it the pandemic. Um,
Trump
let's see.
needs at the beginning.
Okay, who we
They're
can get to play
they're
Donald
gonna,
Trump?
they're gonna
Because we
get the
need to
most
portray Donald Trump as
ball.
the villain. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
they're
Yeah.
gonna get the most slime ball stereotypical villain casting for Trump. I guarantee it.
So
And
who are we gonna get to play Trump? Because we remember we want to be Hollywood here. Who do we get to play Trump? Who's gonna be our villain?
honestly, I don't. Oh, that what's that? The guy that played Hannibal in the most recent iteration of Hannibal.
We don't talk about that. That's freaky.
Yeah,
Um,
well, like the guy. I don't know his name. Um, he's an I think he's an indie film actor, like Mackinson or something like that.
uh, I don't know. So we get
The-
okay. So we got. Let's just go with that with Trump. But who do
yeah,
we? Okay, so who do we want to play Mike Pence? Because we want to portray Mike Pence as somebody who was Donald Trump's lackey, but then became his own man later.
I
I
think
don't know. Maybe who Shia LaBeouf? Uh,
Okay, running for your life in style. No, okay, Mike Pence is brandishing the votes. He's Michael Pence gonna not overturn the results. It's Michael Pence doing all the legal processes. Man, that was such a great video. Man, I have a priest. Like there's a priest. He's now the chaplain of my high school. Like the year after I left, he's going to be the chaplain, or I guess he is now. But he was like he didn't have an A hour, and we had Michigan History hour, and we wanted and the teacher made us do a project on Great Michigan song people or whatever, and the group Tally Hall was like from Michigan. And the guy Rob Cantor. So obviously we had to play Rob Cantor's Shia LaBeouf, and so you have like this priest is like pretty traditional. It's like, but you can do jujitsu, anyways. So yeah, that was funny. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like it'd be hilarious because, like, okay, there's this concept, there's like this highfalutin concept about like AI, like the AI knows like who's gonna help him or not. So like if you don't help him, if you don't help this AI, he's gonna punish you or something. But like do that, but like Fauci, it's like Fauci's basilisk or something like that.
okay, but no, but who do we want to play? So do we want to keep uh let's see, because I don't know, because Arnold Schwarzenegger. Because we want to. Actually, okay. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is a good pick for Fauci because he's going to terminate the virus.
Yeah,
But
he's gonna.
but we gotta
But
what would be the catchphrases? We gotta come up with some Arnold Schwarzenegger catchphrases.
it'd be funny if they just don't change the way he talks at all. Because just imagine he's eventually going to reveal himself to be an AI or be a robot or something like that. So he's not going to change like his way of speaking at all. So he's just going to be like, we're going to be like, hey, Arnold, you're like 95 years old. Can you at least try to be like the Terminator or something? We're going to de-age you like we've done 1,000 times before, like in the past. So don't worry about that. But just act like you're the Terminator.
No. But we gotta come up with some like one-liners though, like so like "I'll be back" or "Ice to see you" or something like that. So we gotta come up with some like one-liners for Fauci and the virus, like "We're gonna lock down this thing," or yes.
At this point, that's just like puns.
I know, but we got to come up with some actual one-liners. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger. You need one-liners. You have to do service to this
The
titan
thing,
of film.
well, the thing is, he has one-liners built in. Like the only one-liner he really has are like the Terminator one.
I cut out the Terminator so much
admittedly,
film.
that is the most like famous role that he ever played. The other ones are just kind of meh.
Let's see. He played in that movie where terrorists blew up an
besides for
island.
Predator.
Are you saying that that outside of his role as the Terminator, that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a bad actor?
I would say, well, no, I'd just say he was put into a lot of mediocre roles.
I mean, he
Besides for
played.
Terminator and
He
Predator.
he doesn't really like. He's best for the Terminator because he doesn't really have that much variation in his voice.
Well, he's. I mean, I don't know. Arnold Schwarzenegger is sort of the. I mean, like how a lot of actors like they have a tendency to get cast as one type of character. You
Yeah,
know, like
like the talking dumb guy.
yeah, like what was Charlie Chaplin? He was essentially like most of his characters. I haven't really watched any Charlie Chaplin films, but this is like the goofball whatever, except like the general is where he kind of stepped out of that role. Of course, we couldn't make the general today because they portrayed the Confederates as the good, or because the Confederates were portrayed as the good guys because they won the Great Locomotive Chase in real life. So, but anyways,
But yeah, like I don't know. He's just like Fauci is. He has the same way of talking too. Like his voice is also stagnant. So an
yes,
old.
but okay, so uh, one final question. Sorry for cutting off, but I'm tired.
Unbelievable.
Okay. One final question. What do we call this movie? Do we call it The Fauci? Do we call it
We
uh
call it
Ventilator.
we call it the
the reign of terror. Let's
No, but
Ventilator.
remember we're pro lockdown Hollywood. We're pro Fauci Hollywood. What do we call this?
okay. Actually, here's a quote from Robespierre when he implemented the reign of terror. He said, "We are going to implementing a system where we have virtue and terror." We I don't know. I just want to like put a Rousseauian thing in there.
Ventilator 2, lockdown. I don't know.
Get
Wait,
to
no.
the back.
I mean actually Robespierre, not
Okay,
Rousseau.
so we got some titles. We got Get to the Vac Center, the coughing, the Fauciing, the coffining, the ventilator. I
I can
see.
see, I can see the poster right now. Like it's just his face darkened on one side, and it's like the light of the tornado lit up.
The droplets. There we go. The droplets.
The
I
droplet,
love
no, the
we
droplet
gotta have
terror.
the scene
The,
where Arnold is cutting out his eye because his eye got damaged.
Ugh.
We had that with his mask. Like
Um.
mask got damaged. I need to repair it.
on on the dark side of his face, you just see the red glowing Terminator eye from Fauci.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to get our art. So we need to get Spartan to make this poster. I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yes,
don't care what he's working on. We just need him to make this poster.
honestly, I think that we should like start changing up the wallpaper every episode, have like something unique. That's
Yeah,
just
that requires the
my
art
two
guy.
cents.
Yeah, we probably should. I mean, I wouldn't mind, but we need the art guy to. So no, I mean, so I don't know. Like, I have the red eye
This
look like the
guy.
COVID germ. Yeah,
Oh,
isolation, a Fauci story. Oh, now we're getting to like the Star Wars spin-off movies where it was just a Star Wars story, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Um,
we need to
we
like the fact, and when we're talking about like Fauci retiring, like Biden just straight up admitted to having cancer. Does
what?
anybody remember
He,
this?
he had cancer.
He said like recently he had cancer.
He has
Hmm.
cancer. The president has cancer.
And nobody and everybody's just like, oh, he just says that sometimes. Like we're
What do
talking
you mean?
about
What do you mean? He just no. I mean, this is. I mean, this is like in all seriousness, moving away from the from the Fauciing. I mean, I mean.
everybody's like, oh, he just says stuff like that. And we're talking about Fauci retiring, and I'm like, okay, Fauci's probably gonna retire soon because he's been like through like
7
15,
presidents.
like he's old. He's probably older than Queen Elizabeth, but like at this point, like why, like like, and like Biden isn't talking about retiring.
He's just part of the
He's
woodwork.
probably older than Queen Elizabeth is. Like, why is he there? This
I
man
mean,
just talked about how he might have cancer, and like no one cares because he just is a gaff factory.
no. I mean, this is. I mean, this is really elder abuse. I don't. I mean, I don't really. Okay, but like, I don't want to think that Joe Biden is actually like fully like conscious and actually believes half the stuff he's being told to say. Because I really, part of me really hopes that he is just that he's just so far gone mentally that he can't be mentally held, or I don't know. I don't know if he
It
can be held
would
culpable for. I don't know.
be more funny if he was just a super like a secret mastermind.
He's playing.
It would be
Yes, Joe
more.
Biden is secretly. Yes, guys, Joe Biden is secretly an American monarchist operative who's been working to conspire to overthrow the republic for 70 years.
Just like
Um,
a villain, you know.
Well,
It'd
well,
be funny.
Roe v. Wade was overturned in his short tenure.
I
I love
mean,
this.
yeah, it took. I mean,
We went through so many Protestant presidents, and by the time we got a Catholic one,
I
Roe
mean,
v. Wade's overturned. Coincidence?
I think not. Uh, no, I mean, yeah, I mean,
It's just hilarious the fact that he just says he is just a babbling, like he just goes off babbling about stuff, and then like his administration is just like, oh, he just says that, and I'm like, what do you mean he just says that? He's like the president. Why is he just saying that he had cancer? I think it was like something like I had oil cancer, and I'm like, what?
no, I mean, and then it's like, I mean, I also apparently got COVID this week, so we really, I mean, we should pray for everybody in government, because we don't want them to die and doing
Yeah, I don't
bad
want.
things,
I mean, I want Biden to repent. Like I don't want him to die. Like obviously I don't want him to die. I don't want anybody in the government to die.
Yeah, so I
Yes,
mean, you know,
he needs to repent before his demise.
yeah,
Like I
no, I
want
mean,
But that's
want them to
just like
want
how
them to
well
be
just
be based
well
once in their life.
well also like Franco before he would have communists executed, he would offer them confession and communion before their execution.
yeah, I mean
If
that,
you're
and
gonna
that's
execute anybody, you do it that way.
yeah. I
Hmm.
mean that's I mean, you know, obviously, you know, you don't want to, you know, I don't know, but I mean, it's
Yeah, that's why
yeah,
I said.
we want I don't know, we want Biden, we want Pelosi, we want Fauci, we want every one of them to. I mean, we don't. It's not. I mean, we don't. I mean, when we talk, you know, bad, we make fun or whatever. Um, I mean, really, I don't know. I mean, we really should try to separate the actions from the persons themselves because you know the actions of a person could be very funny or tragic or whatever, but the fact remains is that
Mhm.
these are people and they have a soul and we have a soul, and we really should be praying that they, you know, are granted you know at least the grace of a final repentance. I mean, like, you know, maybe I mean maybe I need that right now. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been to confession in 3 weeks because of circumstances
God,
and
I
there's all
haven't
these
been to
things that are messing.
confession in months. Like I feel
Yeah,
awful right now. I feel it's so dirty.
I don't have a church. I don't have my own church around me in any ways, so that's kind of hard for me. But like,
Yeah.
obviously, they absolutely do. Um, it, you know, I'll let it. And it's like I was saying earlier. Like, no matter what you've done, like just you being a human is very redeeming. Like you're a human, and you have the power to repent, and you have the gift of repentance, and you have the gift to like turn your life around, and that's what like it shouldn't be like your mental status. It shouldn't be like how smart you are. It shouldn't be how strong you are. It's just the fact, just based off the fact that you're a human and you have the ability to change your track in life. So I think that's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's,
and I mean,
that goes back to like Trump, whoever, like
yeah,
Fauci.
yeah. So just, you know, because you know whether we wrap up or not, a story from a book called Purgatory Explained by the Lies and Legends of the Saints. There was one saint, I can't, I maybe, but and she was describing how she had a vision of this guy who was in purgatory, and he died in a duel, which, you know, if you dueling to the death is an excommunicatable offense. It's a mortal sin. So if you die, you know, unrepentant of that, which, you know, half of people you would assume do, uh,
Mhm.
you know, they'll you know, you'll rot in hell. But this man was granted the gift of by the intercession of our Blessed Mother was granted the gift of final repentance. So obviously he went to purgatory for a long time because of it, because obviously he didn't really have time to make satisfaction. But yeah, so dueling to the death. Don't duel to the death. Like if you wanna,
That
I
the
don't know if the church has something against like not dueling to the death. Like I mean, obviously I don't think the church has anything against fencing, but don't duel to the death just in general.
the monarchist minute slogan of the night: "Don't duel to the death, folks."
And also, Hollywood. If this whole thing falls apart and we need money, we could come up with creative ideas for you. Please hire us.
Yeah, folks, if you duel to the death, you'll die. So don't duel to the death, and you won't die.
Yeah, I mean, just I don't know. I mean, it's I don't know. I don't want to see. I don't know. I don't really want to see people dying because it hurts. You know, when you hear people appearing of people apostatizing or whatever. Because, you know, I mean, it's not. I mean, really. I mean, I don't think it is, or I mean, it shouldn't be just this like, oh, some guy left our team or whatever. But it's like, you know, this is putting their soul in jeopardy, and then you think, what have I been doing that's putting my soul in jeopardy? You know, because it's
Yeah, I mean, it goes, and it's like politics, religion, whatever. Like you know, when you see somebody being misinformed, you know, you don't want to be like, I wanna beat you to death because you know. It's more so like, man, you're really misinformed, you know.
yeah,
And
we don't.
we can't like. We wish we could change minds, but unfortunately, humans don't really work that way. Like humans are very like they as far as like humans go, they're very emotional, and when humans are emotional and set in their ways, that's like the worst thing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, I mean, really, I mean, like Saint Monica, she prayed for her son Augustine all the time, and it took, but you know, she was just praying. But who was it was the bishop that actually made Saint Augustine uh see the or which bishop I don't know, but it was you know, I mean Saint Monica, she really couldn't I mean she didn't like convince him intellectually, but she was praying for him, and then somebody, I think it was another saint, said, don't worry that, a woman who shed so many tears over this won't have her prayers go unanswered or something. And of course, Saint Augustine eventually became um one of the greatest saints that that the church. I mean, everybody knows Saint Augustine and his works. Yeah, so I mean, I mean that's so we really can't. I mean, I can't really do much for Joe Biden in terms of talking to him because I'm just some random guy in Michigan. It's not like I can just phone up Joe Biden and be like, "Hey, buddy." But I can pray
Maybe,
for him. I can pray for King
maybe
Francis
we
the
should
Second.
get like a maybe we should just get like a soft like Catholic bishop, like Bishop Barron. Go talk to Joe Biden. Go try to help him.
Well, Bishop Barrett could be a little. I don't know. Well, some guys, like, he said he enjoyed Bishop Barron's videos or whatever, but he wished that Bishop Barron wouldn't be so hard on Gnosticism, and Bishop Barron just responds with, "Why? I hate Gnosticism."
I know some of Bishop Barron's takes is actually like pretty based, but he is kind of like just seen as like the soft core Catholicism.
I mean, yeah.
Um, but honestly, I think probably that would be like the best approach for a Joe Biden like figure, and then you slowly incrementally get him to Cardinal Sarah, so that way the African bishops can just lay the law down.
Oh yeah, the Catholic Church, the clerics in Africa, they know what's going on, man. It's because people. It's almost like people over there actually go to mass on Sundays. Imagine that.
Oh,
Um,
they actually have a closer relationship with God because they have to deal with the aches and pains of life all the time.
yeah. Um, I cannot believe we smashed the record by an hour.
Well, we can
Yeah,
keep on smashing it.
I mean that's on you
What
guys.
time is it over there, Darth? What time is it over there for you?
It's 9:30 where I'm at.
Okay. What do
I'm
you
like
have to do
the
tomorrow? No, I'm
I
just being.
I have to make a few videos like the memorial for Tsar Nicholas II because I was busy last week to do it. Also for Crown Prince Wilhelm II, I need to make his video, and then I need to make Crown Prince Rupert's video.
Okay. Well, do you
at Charles.
have to get those out? Do you have to get those out by
Yes,
by
I
Monday?
do.
By
Yes, I
Monday?
do.
Oh, okay. Well,
Because I'm gonna release them
I'm. It's like how
every
late
day.
it is here. It's like 10. It's like 10:35.
oh, boo hoo. I that train sailed with me an hour ago.
What do you? Oh yeah, you're. It's like 11 over there.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost midnight, and I have to be up in 6 hours and 10 minutes.
I just fed.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Mountain Time Superior.
I was just
Hey,
being.
hey, I'm part of the Mountain Time elite. We have the least amount of people in our time zone. That just makes us instantly the elite class in America.
Yeah. I'm also one of the only people who lives in this house. I guess that makes me part of the elite of America. But anyways, um, okay. So, do we have anything more to talk about the Fauciing?
9.
It's old. I don't know. That's Fauci is old. That's what I can say.
Okay. Uh.
Like in my expert assessment, Fauci is old.
In my expert assessment, he is part of the lumpen elitariat that needs to be disposed of in the whole boomer race.
Okay, are we
Uh,
ready to wrap up?
yeah, I guess. I don't know. We're an
Oh,
hour and 30 minutes over.
We're an hour we're an hour and 10 minutes or so over our record. Okay,
No,
so
we've beaten some regular podcasts today. Like some like podcasts that go for like some hardcore podcasts go for like 4 hours. We're almost there. We're
well,
almost.
I mean, there are a lot of hardcore podcasts that like get a lot more concisely done in in like an hour. Like I would honestly say like Carl Benjamin's new like Lotus Eaters, they actually like get a lot compacted into an hour, but they have like very fast talking people on their podcast as well.
Yeah, those like expert podcast, like the kind of the expert minded podcasts, like with academics, they can spit stuff out pretty fast.
I actually
Oh
watched
yeah.
one on the chief mechanical engineer and the LNER, Edward Thompson. It was about 2 hours. It was very fascinating, but you guys probably don't care about railways in the UK, so.
How did we squeeze? We only had 3 topics. How did we squeeze like
Well, okay, because
hours out?
here's what
We
happened.
don't have Victor going like artificially. We're gonna change the subject now. I don't care
No,
if you guys want to still talk about it.
no. I mean I guess that's unfair. I mean, Darth, John, and I, we are probably the three guys of the regular crew who like to talk the most. Like we love to make our point, and
Like
fully explain it. Like
I
we're
kind of
not
like
shy about it.
I kind of like ruminating in my like kind of my point because that's what podcasts are. They're just kind of like if we all like ruminate on a point, we can kind of get more out of it. I guess that's what that's what's like so important about podcasts because with podcasts you should be able to like have room to kind of just not
Okay,
not like go on for like an hour or two about like one topic, but like have room to fully flesh out your point.
okay.
I mean
I
that's
think
why most of the distant right are going towards long form podcast content over the video essay because frankly like you can get more ideas out bouncing between each other who have a general similar frame of mind than just yourself writing a script and reading it with some like images
yeah.
over the
So,
video.
so,
Yeah,
All right.
you guys have went through my entire battery on my phone. I can't believe you guys.
well, you know what? That's fine. Anyways,
Upgrade to the PC Master Race.
yes.
Like get a computer for your phone.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You know what? You know what? Here's loopy thoughts. What if we took the operating system of a PC, but made it like portable? Maybe like have like the screen pull
Bro,
down over the keyboard.
that
You
was
want to know
my
how hot
what are
that
you
phone
talking
is?
about? Get out of here, bro. That was my idea.
Yeah, yeah. You want to know how hot that phone would get?
Well, you could
Yeah,
just have like really loud and obnoxious fans going in that.
All
yeah,
right,
and
Like
like a
maybe
super,
maybe maybe we'll
have like
have
a
it sit
super
on your
giant
lap and
heat
give you
sink,
a laptop.
hear me
and
out.
like have
Gaming phone. It's a gaming phone. You can play Hoi 4 on it.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Every once in a while, I see a picture of somebody who managed to boot Victoria 2 on their smartphone. I'm like, why?
how?
You could force boot it from the Steam app or something. I don't know. It's weird.
Oh,
Like it's like don't worry. It's like efficient or something, and it's like a guy on fire with a laptop.
hmm.
Yeah,
Oh god,
it's
I just ordered a gaming laptop literally today.
Yeah,
Because it's
gaming
on
laptops
sale.
are what I survive on because I don't have enough money to get like a work laptop and a gaming laptop, so I wind up having to get just a gaming laptop to put all my like school stuff on.
I may sound like a bit of a I'm a rich guy here, but I did earn all my money to purchase these. But I have a mini desktop, which is literally like a miniature desktop that's like the palm of your hand size. Then I have a full size desktop PC, which I'm on right now, that has a GTX 1660 Super and an i5. And then I have my brand new gaming laptop in the mail right now that Yeah, it's got a 3050 Ti and a Ryzen 7 5800 in it. And then I have my old laptop, which I bought like 6 years ago, that is barely running. I have my Xbox One, I have my Xbox 360. I have two really nice monitors and a really nice 1080p TV.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
you need to redistribute some of that. What the heck, man?
No, I'm
We need
not.
to. We need to. We're changing our platform to Socialists of America, or Gamers, Socialist
Game
Gamers of
the
America.
commune of American gamers.
the
Now,
the Socialist Republic of Gamers.
okay, well, actually, that's just the
No,
little brother when he wants to play with his.
computer,
Anyway,
computer that's like Republic of Gamers, and I'm like, I have that. I have that type of computer. I'm like, it's so ironic.
okay.
Okay, you need to get
Now,
rid of that and get a Lenovo Legion to honor the Roman legions.
You need to get like what is that? A Kingdom of Gamers. We need to get into the computer industry and make monarchist exclusive computers.
yes,
Yes, the crown gamers.
Gamers of the Crown. I don't know.
Who knows? And then then we name the different models after different monarchs.
yes, we have
The
the
Wilhelm II laptop,
Wilhelm laptop. Wilhelm laptop.
the Nicholas II desktop, the
the
The Peter the Great of like that Steam Deck thing.
yes the let's see, the King James II laptop
Wilhelm
that will
top.
get taken from you all too soon.
The
Yeah.
Elizabeth Box 1.
Yep.
Or no, the Elizabeth Box 2. I don't know.
Yeah, the Queen Elizabeth I. We don't talk about her. Anyways, oh, this is our top. Okay, so we'll nationalize the memes of recreation sometimes later. But are we ready to wrap up?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the final timestamp will be 1 hour 41 minutes and however many seconds or some other weird time. Okay, so I'll plug the social
No,
medias.
no, it'd be like 3 hours. No, it's like 3 hours and like
3 hours and 3 hours 42 minutes or something like
gee,
that.
we're almost at like 4 hours.
I'm not going to 4 hours. I have to download this massive audio file. I have to download this. Look, okay, hold on. This is what's gonna happen. I will be physically unable to download this massive audio file, and then all this work will have been for nothing, and then I'll be very upset about it. So, okay, but if that
Like,
doesn't
get
happen,
finished
if you
downloading this.
shush, we are wasting time. I'm surprised Craig hasn't died yet. If you would like to listen to us live, we record these podcasts starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because that is the time zone of normal people. You can also watch our podcast on YouTube, obviously, because that's where you are right now, isn't it? And you can follow us on our various social medias, including the Facebook group, which I have put in the description. If you actually still use that, and I think you very suspicious if you actually use the Facebook.
Hey, I use Facebook. What are you talking about?
Okay, yeah, but Facebook was originally meant for university people, so whatever, it makes sense for you. So, with that being said, I can now put away my sarcasm and frustration, and
Okay,
we can
let's just start. In nomine Patri Filii Spiritus Sancti.
okay. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our
Give
daily
us
bread.
this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses,
Those
as we
trespass,
forgive those who trespass against us.
lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one.
Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. Until next week, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.